Hi there, hey, my name is Dan Scott, and this is the Figma Advanced course. So who am I? I'm Dan. I am a UX designer and Figma instructor. I've won multiple teaching awards, and I've helped more than 1 million people become better designers now through my courses. Now this course is aimed at people who already know the fundamentals of Figma. You've either done my Essentials Figma course or you're self-taught, but you know that there are tools and tips and workflows and updates that you just haven't had time to go and explore. So if that sounds familiar, this course is for you. During the course, you'll be given your own unique brief and persona and build an app that is ready to drop into your portfolio. You'll start by diving deep into multi-level nested auto layouts. You'll make robust components that are easy to update, but hard to break. Learn workflow tricks for managing design assets, styles, components, grids, and column layouts. Finally, learn how to use variables and put them to work, creating even more complete prototypes. Then use variables to make easy light and dark modes and compact and comfortable spacing versions of all your components. And with all our new variable knowledge, we'll be able to understand and create our own design tokens. Learn advanced animation techniques in Figma. You'll build responsive elements ready for any device size, all the while learning the best shortcuts and plugins to make you a more efficient UX designer. You'll learn how powerful Figma can be to manipulate and mask images and videos. You'll know all the advanced typography features and how to use AI in your process to make you a better UX designer. You'll learn all the advanced prototyping techniques to level up your user tests. Of course, there'll be a pug dog in there somewhere. There he is. You'll learn the right accessibility tools and techniques. You become a variant boss. Learn how to cut down those unwieldy 100 variant components down to 1 by mastering component properties. Learn all the best ways to work with other designers, developers, and all of the stakeholders. Now there is so much more than that in this course. There is more than 160 videos. So check out the table of contents, see what we cover, check out the student reviews and testimonials, and you will see that this course will take you from Figma good to Figma great. In this course, we'll use real-world practical projects. You can download the exercise files and the shortcut sheets so that you can work alongside me in the mini class projects, not homework. So if you want to take your Figma skills to the next level, sign up and go from good to a Figma superhero. Hi everyone, hey quickly, this is a free extract from my larger, much larger Figma Advanced course. Okay, so if you do want to master Figma, check out the link in the description, but for now, let's jump in. All right, to get started, first thing is to download the exercise files. So there'll be a link on the page, download the files that we use through this course. In that folder though, there'll also be the shortcut sheet. Okay, it's a PDF, you can print it off. There'll be lots of shortcuts in this course. I'll go through them loads, but it'd be handy having that next to you so you can circle the ones that you really like and really want to remember. Yeah, so download the files, and then what's next? That's what's next. How fast does Dan talk? Most people think I talk too fast, and I probably do. Some people have said I talk too slow and they want to speed me up. Guess what? You can. There's a cog down in the bottom corner there. You can set me to whatever speed you like. Okay, slow Dan, fast Dan, whatever you like. There you go. Can you do it with the free version? You totally can. Pretty much all of this course you can do with the free version of Figma. We will look at some of the paid features because it's an advanced course and you want to know what you might be missing out if you're on the free account, but most of it's to do with like larger teams, and it's not so much features missing, it's more to do with collaboration, but I'll take you through those ones so that you get a sense for them. But yeah, you can go through most of this course with the free version, and the tiny bits that are paid, it's worth knowing even if you do have the free version about, you know, what can be done if you do end up in a position where you're looking at the paid version. I'm not sure what this is. What else? Okay, lastly is level 1 and level 2. If you look in the contents, you will see that some of the bigger topics, the chunkier parts of Figma where there's a lot to go through, I've broken up into 2 parts, level 1, level 2. Why? Mainly because I was going mad trying to put it together because there's a lot to those things, like auto layouts, one of them, for instance. And there's a lot to it, and it's really important to learn in this course, but doing it all at once, even preparing it, I was just like, man, I need to go do something else. And that's what I've done. I've kind of got the really good, chunky, best bits in level 1, and then the more, not more obscure is the wrong word. I had to break it so that the more detailed we got, we're going to carry it on later in the course. We're going to take 2 goes at a couple of those big topics, level 1, level 2. Does that make sense? Because I was going mad, and I know that you'll get bored as well, okay? Because they're just really long. We want to kind of, I don't know, mix it up a little bit, do a bit of auto layout, learn loads of good advanced stuff, take a break, do some other stuff, come back to auto layout and really like get super advanced. All right, that is it. Getting started. Let's get started. Let's do something. Hello everyone, welcome to the course proper. This video here is kind of like a catch-up video. It is some fundamentals that you probably already know, okay? Just to make sure everyone's on the same level, okay? I need to make sure that everyone knows what a basic creation of an auto layout, what it's good for, components, that sort of stuff. We'll make these 2 pages here. They're not super special, so if you are reasonably advanced, you can skip this one. If you're in the middle or not super confident, just want to make sure you're all good, want a refresher, this is the video for you. I'll make sure also I'll throw in some good shortcuts throughout this video as well to make sure it's valuable for everyone. But if you're like, man, this is kind of stuff I already know, that's okay. Skip along. We get more and more advanced on the course. I just need to make sure everyone's okay. You okay? The short version is auto layouts are great because you can do stuff like this. You can move it around. It's adjustable. It's flexible. Okay, I can decide that it's going to be on this different size frame here, the larger iPhone, and I can turn things on and off. So that's why auto layouts are good. Components are really good because I might decide later on that this guy here, I'm going to zoom in. Okay, he's a component. We make him in this video, but I might decide actually in the inside here, he is, I don't know, got this going on. I don't know what this is, but because he's a component, okay, he's got a hairdo. Looks like my hair, bald at the top. Okay, can you see this one adjusts as well? So let's revise what an auto layout does, why and how to make components. Plus I'll throw in some interesting things about icons, icon sizes, how to scale them right, and we'll get the beginning of our project started. Would you get on with it, Dan? Okay. All right, let's get started. I'm going to use the new design file. There's lots of different ways of starting a design file. You choose the one you like the most. I'm going to rename this one, instead of untitled, I'm just going to double click the title. I'm going to call this one Event App V1.0. Hit enter. And our first shortcut is going to be the F key for frame. Okay, there it is. There's the icon. And I'm going to put in a phone. Now, my advice is to pick whatever phone you are using to do the testing on. Okay, if you've got a really old iPhone, use that. If you've got the newest one, use that. You can test on your phone using the Figma app. Okay, you can download that from the Android or the App Store. Okay, and it's great to be able to mock up on that because it matches. In the future, well, it's always going to be the future when you're watching this. Okay, it might be iPhone 27, use that. Okay, I'm going to use the iPhone 14. And what I'd like to do is use another size frame as well. So I'm going to hit the F key again. I'm going to use the larger size plus. Okay, so the iPhone 14 Plus. Why? Because I guess this course here is showing you how to build components, auto layouts, constraints, variables, all those sorts of things, is so that we can build units that we can use in our designs that are quite flexible and resilient to different sizes, okay, and changes and being used by other people. And you know, that's the goal here in this kind of advanced course, is doing things that aren't just slapdash is the wrong word for it, but like just kind of like getting stuff done and then moving on. We want to make stuff that is really responsive, used on different devices, can be used by different team members, but without breaking it, and by you using it in the future, saving yourself time. Okay, first thing we need to do is line them up. Okay, so they need to line up at the tops. I'm not sure why. Shift 1 shows you everything on your document. Just a couple little shortcuts to kind of flex our muscles. We probably know them already. Okay, next one is we're going to bring in some icons. So we're going to use another shortcut that we know very well, probably, maybe. Command Shift K. On a PC, it's Control Shift K. Brings in icons, or brings in images at least. In your exercise files, there is a folder called icons. Let's bring all these guys in. Let's click open. Now, when you're putting in multiple images, okay, you can click once and you get like the size to which the SVG's been assigned, okay? Sometimes they're huge and you can't even see them, they're so big. Have you ever done that? Okay, it's like this gigantic SVG or Illustrator file you brought in, okay? You can click and drag, okay? But you end up with these squidgy sizes. You can hold Shift to get them in right, but like, it's not what we want. What I want to do is I'm gonna undo to get rid of them all. Hit that same shortcut, Command Shift K, Control Shift K on a PC, bring them all in, and it's just easier to go place all. And they get kind of stuck in the middle of your document. First up, let's see that they're all inside frames. There you go. Okay, and I would like to say I'm going to move them all over here to the edges just to get them off the iPhone frame for the moment, because I want to do a couple of things. First thing I want to do is make them into components, because everything normally ends up being a component. I get asked that question, like, what should be a component? Most things. Doesn't hurt to make it a component, will help you later on, especially if it's going to be used more than once, like these icons. And by more than once, not like necessarily on the same page or even in the same document. Maybe it's going to be used in another, a completely new Figma file, okay? You know it's going to be used for future projects. It should be a component because they all lead back to that original one. And when you make an update, they come along for the ride. Everything be a component. All right, the next thing I want to do is I want to make them, I've got them all selected here. I want to actually just say make multiple components, not just one giant one, okay? I want to make multiple components, all separate, okay? They all are there. Nice. Let's get them to an appropriate size. Now, scaling them is easy, right? If you got them all selected, hold shift and you grab the corner and they scale down. That works most of the time, but in my opinion, it's better to use the scale tool to do all your scaling. So it's the K key on your keyboard. Okay, or you can just pick it here. Okay, use that one because it will scale things like the stroke and effects at the same time. If you've ever downloaded somebody else's icons and they're not scaling quite right and the strokes are staying the same and the drop shadows are doing weird stuff, just use the scale tool. The other nice thing about the scale tool is over here, you can pick scales. You can say, I want it to be, you're working on a design that's 4 times the size or it's half the size. What I tend to use it for though is I can type it in over here. I can say, all right, I want you to have a good icon size. What is a good icon size? You can pick any icon size you like, but 32 or 48 is generally a really good icon size. Depends what you're using it for, where they need to go. They can get bigger, they can get smaller. It's really common though, you use multiples of 8. We'll cover that later on in the course, why that's so useful. Okay, so I'm making them all a height of 32, and you might have done this already, you might have clicked off and gone, oh, I can't handle these. They need to be laid out, Dan. Okay, I'm going to undo that. It doesn't matter, you don't have to do it, but I just leave them there because I'm going to select them all and I'm going to hit Shift A, okay, for my auto layout. That's the shortcut for auto layout is Shift A. It's the same on Mac and PC. Figma seems to be moving a lot to that Shift key to be a shortcut because it's the same for Mac and PC and Linux or whatever you're using Figma on. And there we go, we've got an auto layout. So we can do that cool responsive thing at the bottom you saw. So they've got components inside of them. We've got our auto layout. You've done auto layouts before, probably. Okay, the basics are, see the little icon there? That's the frame for my auto layout. I'm over here thinking, where's all my options? It's because I'm still on scale. Hit V key, okay, and everything will pop back up. K for scale gives me some very specific stuff. And then I'm gonna hit V to go back to my move tool. Actually, it just typed in there. I'm gonna hit cross, go away. All right, so auto layouts normally default to the right one. We can go left and right. We can play with the spacing. Okay, we've all done this before. Click and drag the little icon to play with the spacing. Let's move it over here so you can see it. Okay, you can do it on the document. Okay, so you can click on it and I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. You can see I can drag it on this. Excellent, easy. We can rearrange these by clicking just one of them. Okay, well, diving inside of it, you can, watch this. Click it once, double click it to go inside, and you can drag these around because I want this to be the first. I want the heart to be next, and instead you can drag them. You can use your arrow keys. So you've got one selected, just use your left and right, or your up and down, depending on which way you've got this going. Okay, and I want the ticket, so I double clicked it, left arrow, I want that one there. What I want to do for this one is actually, I want to turn the ticketing, the ticket option off, okay, for the not logged in person because they don't have tickets yet and it's taking up valuable space in our lower nav. Speaking of lower nav, let's call it nav hyphen lower. We'll do proper naming later on in the course, okay, but it's going to be my lower nav. I put nav first so that they're ordered nicely. So you can have nav upper, nav lower, nav side, okay. And what I want to do is double click this guy. That's him, and I want to turn the eyeball off on him. I can delete him, okay, I can delete him, and watch this, actually, double click, delete him, and he's gone completely. I don't want that. Actually, I want to bring him back later on when the person's logged in. I want it to magically appear. And that's the nice thing about auto layout, right, is the spacing is cool, but it's this kind of reflowing, okay, this responsiveness that makes it super useful. So I want just those 3 for the moment. Next thing I want to do is hold spacebar. Let's get this down here and just dump it in the bottom corner. Okay, and drag this over here, and you can mess around in here, auto layouts. Okay, I'm going to use the center one. You can play around with your spacing. Okay, so we've got our auto layout. I'm going to duplicate it onto the larger phone size, holding down my Option key on a Mac, Alt key on a PC, and just click and drag it over. You get a duplicate. Grab the square in the corner. Okay, if you don't grab the square, sometimes you can grab the padding, and that can be a bit frustrating. Okay, so grab the square and I can resize it. Look, for the other larger size, and everything kind of sits in there nicely. It's not particularly resilient yet. Okay, but good enough to get started. The trouble with our auto layout at the moment is that if I then say, okay, great, Dan said I could turn on the ticket for this one. Okay, this is the one with a logged in user. Whoops, wrong one. So iPhone Plus, and here I want this one. Turn it on. It's good. Okay, and I can double click it and I can adjust it, and that might be enough. Okay, but we're here for the advanced stuff. We need it to automatically reflow. We want it to be responsive, resilient. Let's do that in the next video. Hi everyone, we're going to look at doing the auto spacing between these different icons, because at the moment we've got something that is quite manual. The problem with it is if we turn on other icons, things don't reflow. Well, don't reflow very well. Everything kind of spills over. Whereas this one here, now that we've got the auto setting going, okay, when we turn on our little ticket, you see everything reflows nicely. We've still got all our paddings on the left and right. Everything is nice and responsive. We'll also do a little bit at the end after we learn auto, just to add some kind of like rounded corners and interface kind of color in the background. A little drop shadow here on our auto layout for no good reason, other than to actually make something during this course rather than just, I don't know, learning individual tools. Let's make something together. Okay, to set this to auto instead of a fixed space between like 98 that I've got, okay, all you do is with it selected over here under auto layout, go to the three little dots, and let's change it the spacing mode from packed, which means they're squeezing together as tightly as they can, given the size of the icon and the fixed dimension that I gave them in between. Okay, what you can say is like, don't be packed, be space between. Can you see just above my cursor there, it says auto? So it's going to automatically space them out. And because there's no padding on the outside, it just spreads out. It's doing exactly what I want it to do. I just need a little bit of padding either side. So I can hover above it. If these little pink lines don't appear, it means you're probably zoomed out too far. They just don't appear when you're zoomed out. You're going to be zoomed in close enough so that it can see, you know, it's got enough room, real estate, to kind of actually show the little pink lines. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drag in some padding. Okay, you can do one side at a time. That's fine. Okay, or you can undo. Hold down the Option key on a Mac, Alt key on a PC, and it does them both at the same time, and drag them in. I've dragged mine in 48. You drag in yours the way you want. But the cool thing about it, once I've set my margin, these is just auto. You can see they just resize to fit. And that means now if I add it over here, drag it across, holding down Alt or Option. Watch this. If I drag the corner now, can you see it leaves the same margin because I've decided that. I say margin quite a bit when I mean padding. Padding in Figma Dan. Okay, so I've still got the exact same padding on the outside, which I want for consistency across different apps. I've got a bit more space though, and look, auto goes and fills that space. Why is that good? Right now, you'd be like, I can do that. It's when you have to turn on and off different parts, okay, and get things to reflow. So the moment down here, watch this. This is the old one with the fixed spacing. Okay, if I turn on my eyeball, watch this. If I turn it on, it gets wrecked. Because of my fixed spacing, okay, it tries to force all of that to happen, and it's just not enough room. Whereas if it's auto, okay, I can say where it is. I can say you turn the eyeball on my ticket sold. Okay, look at that. Everything reflows. Auto is awesome. I want a specific padding from the edge for consistency, but these are allowed to jiggle about. Now what I tend to do is not use the long way. Okay, the spacing mode packed, space between is fine. Okay, you can do it a quicker way and just replace the number in here. Okay, the horizontal space between items. Okay, space between our icons, just double click it and just type in auto. It's generally quicker and easier. You can kind of see the icon change. Look, before, after, before, before, after. You can actually type it in down here as well. Watch this. If I go undo, you can click it once and you see it says 113, type in auto. Okay, we used our shortcut, remember Alt or Option to drag both sides at once, or you can type it in over here. You can say actually left and right is going to be 48 or maybe 56, depending on how much padding you want. All right, next thing I want to do is I want to style the frame. This is totally nothing to do with the auto layout. We just need to do this before we go away, because I find that working in a rectangle is fine, but if you look at your phone, you'll notice that you don't have a rectangle. It's rectangle-ish with rounded corners. So I'm going to do that to our frame before we move on. You can skip ahead if you don't want to make rounded corners. I'm going to click on the name iPhone 14 to click on that frame, and I'm going to say you have a border radius of 30. Okay, and it goes around all of it. It's more realistic for a phone, especially when you're trying to do margins and padding. You can see it kind of was too close to the bottom, but with the rounded corners, exceptionally too close to the bottom. So I'm going to click on my auto layout and I want some padding from the bottom. Okay, 24, that's about right. If you are thinking, what is about right? Who makes these rules? You can make your own rules depending on how much you're using the operating system, okay, like Android or iPhone, how much you want to mimic it or how much you want to do your own thing. If you are looking and you're like new to UX and new to UI design and you're finding it a little bit tricky, then you're like, why did he pick that? What I tend to do when I'm working on a component that I don't know much about, like this bottom nav, I'll go check out the iOS documentation or the Google Android documentation. Okay, let's look at one of them. You can look at either of them, both of them. Okay, let's have a look at this one here. So I'm using the Android one. I do a lot more design on Android because that's the phone I have. That's what I want to test on. And they have really good documentation. Okay, Google Android call their design system called Material. Okay, it's at M3 at the moment. It might be M20 by the time you get to it. The nice thing about it though is you can go to things like this. Okay, go to components, have a look through, see if you can find the name of the thing you're trying to design. And if you're new to UI design, you might not even know. You might have to go spend some time in here, go, what the hell is a navigation drawer? What's a navigation rail? Some of them are easy, like I want a navigation bar. The cool thing about it is that it will have a lot of documentation about how to use it, where to use it. The best thing is can you see there? There's actually a Figma design kit for this. You can open it and start copying and pasting bits out. Too good. Okay, have a read through. It's good to get your language correct, so you know you're using a burger menu and not a nav sandwich, because nobody calls it that except Dan. Okay, and you can go through and find out all sorts of stuff about spacing. Okay, how far from things should be. Okay, there's lots of good stuff in here. How many you should fit in here, how many should not fit in there, how big they should be so that they're clickable. Loads of good stuff along with examples. Now we're doing it for Android here. You can look at the iOS, so Apple's version. You can look at maybe a framework that you're using. Okay, say it's a web design that you're doing, have a look what they've done. Bootstrap, Tailwind, WordPress, they'll all have specific kind of like documentation about how things should, okay, in quotes, be implemented. And you can use that for a starting point for your design. Next thing I want to do is, I've got my rounded corners. I want to make this a little bit taller. I would like to have a little bit of padding at the top, okay. Often it's more padding at the bottom than the top. Kind of think framed photograph or framed painting on a wall. That kind of like chin at the bottom there is more than the top. Gives it kind of a nice footing foundation. In our case, keeps it away from the edge of the frame. The other thing I want to do is I want you saw at the beginning here, maybe you did. I want the background color to be a slightly different interface color than the front here, to make this stand off a little bit. So we're just doing some basic stuff. You can skip ahead now. No more cool auto layout stuff, more just designy stuff. So I'm going to make the iPhone a particular color. Okay, so FFF is the white. F7 is what I like. And with these colors here, if you just type in 1, I know that the color I want is F7, 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 okay, on repeat. If you just type in one of them and hit enter, it will fill them all out for you and give you the color you want. That's the color I want. Okay, kind of a darker gray, kind of like that Windows operating system background color. It's so that when I go to this auto layout down here and I say, I want you to have a background fill of white, can you see there's a bit of contrast between the two? Not huge. It just allows us to see the boundaries between these two. And what I'm going to do is actually add a little bit of a drop shadow. So I'm going to say effects. I'm going to say drop shadow. I'm going to click on the little sun to change it. I want it to be up a little bit, and I want it to be 0 down, and I want it to be blurry, and I want it to be, I don't know. Let's have a look. Shift 1 to see everything. It's probably a bit strong. Okay, so I'm going to say you're down to 15. There we go. I want just that little subtle hint that, look, I'm separate from this. All right, so now I want to copy this frame details to this one. Okay, so I'm going to select the frame title. Let's go Command Option C. So it's kind of like copy, okay, but with that extra key. On a PC, it's similar. It's Control Alt C to copy it. And then over here, it's those same two keys and V. Okay, and it brings through my background color, brings through all the radiuses. Now there are shortcuts where you're like, man, I'm not going to remember all these, Dan. What I find is that the super shortcut that everyone might know, that you might not, I've got it selected here. I can't remember what paste properties is. So with it selected, just hold down the Command or Control key on a PC and hit the /. So have a look at your keyboard. Okay, it's the /, the one that leans forward, and just type in, I don't know, properties. You can see there, copy and paste properties. You'll learn the shortcuts, but also it's almost just as quick just to click on these, especially if it's not a shortcut you use all the time. That's Command on a Mac, Control on a PC, and /. You can get any shortcut you like. Paste properties. I did not need it on that. All right, so we have run into a little problem. Okay, this has updated with a drop shadow and it's got a white background. This one didn't. Why not? Oh, because it's not a component. Components inside components. Let's do that in the next video. Hello everyone. Let's talk about when you should make components, when you shouldn't, and some of the quirky things to do with components when you're making them. All right, let's start by making this into a component because these are two separate auto layouts and you can see them over here. The little icon is not our lovely waffle shape or these diamonds. Okay, so we're going to convert it. And the first thing that's going to happen, it's going to be kind of weird. Watch this. I've got it selected. Okay, I'm going to use my shortcut, which is Command Option K on a Mac, Control Alt K on a PC. Okay, and click that. And it's going to convert it into a component. Great. What happened over here? Okay. It spat out all of these internal components. Okay, so these were inside my auto layout and it went, hey, you can't be inside of here. So they spat them out and left, okay, instances of those components inside. Let's have a look. So let's undo it and have a little breakdown just so you get an idea of what's happening. So inside of here are these. These are my main components. These rule all the other components on all the other options. And it is best practice not to just leave them on page one. A lot of people do, and they can work. The trouble is that we can't have these main components that control all of these inside another main component. So when you make it, use your shortcut, remember Command Option K on a Mac, Control Alt K on a PC. It goes, you can't be in here, and spits them out over here. And we've got these components going on over here, okay? And they're not even inside of this frame, okay? They're just kind of hanging out underneath it. So what we can do is, that's fine, like totally fine. Let's collapse these up. I'm gonna grab them all. I'm gonna turn the eyeball on this one, okay? Because we turned it off before. Grab them all, and with them selected, I'm gonna just move them over here. Let's zoom in on them a little bit. If you've got them selected, remember, you can hit Shift 2 and it will like jump to what you've got selected. And we're gonna use this tidy up just because tidy up is awesome. Did you notice before when I was up here, I couldn't do tidy up? Because the icon doesn't fit. So you gotta zoom in, there it is. You just gotta be in a zoom level where this thing fits and just do them nicely like that. Great, so that might happen to you and you might not even notice and you'll end up with weird stuff kind of hiding under other layers and it's a bit of a problem, but hey, we've worked it out. And the other thing is that we're not gonna leave this here either, okay? Because on the first frame, you can, okay? I don't imagine I'm gonna put this into another component, but I might do, so it's just good practice to drag it off over here. So holding down my Option key on a Mac, okay, Alt key on a PC, click, hold, and drag, and just move it over here. And what I've got is, actually, let's just drag the whole, don't drag that. Let's drag the actual icon itself. Okay, and so I'm gonna keep my main component over here and let's keep an instance on my first artboard. There we go. He's now a component. This one here needs to get switched out. They all need to be the instances. And because we've got the setup suite, oh, we should be able to just go look at that. Oh, good. You can see here, this one is set up to auto, so is this one, all controlled nicely by our main component over here. We got it. Now the question of when to make components is there's no like specific rule. When you're at your kind of initial design stage and you're just kind of like messing things around, you don't need components. It's not until you get that second frame, and especially for things like buttons and any icons, they should always be components because you're going to reuse them. But like me, you'll end up doing stuff where you kind of like make make a little card here and you end up duplicating it instead of making components, and then there is nothing controlling them all. So you've got to go through and redo everything, or at least adjust every single one. So you end up bumping into when you need components. Last thing about components is that when you're storing your main components off to the side, okay, often can be on another page, okay, when you've got a slightly large document. I keep them on the same page when the design's quite small. There's a lot of messing around. I want to go back to the main components a lot. So I just pop them over the side here. But when you've got them over the side, it's really important to put them inside of a kind of a placeholder frame. So the F key for frame tool, and I'm just going to put them on this. I'm probably going to make it a different color just so I can see the contrast of the white. Why are they inside there? Mainly so, let's bring this out here. So it's not inside of a parent frame, it's just hanging out by himself, still a main component. There's nothing over here that you can set the constraints. The constraints are, let's click on this one, because it's inside of my phone frame, it says I can set the constraints to the top or the left. In my case, probably the bottom left, okay, because I want it to stick down to the bottom of this frame. Means when I adjust this one, okay, adjust the parent frame, can you see it sticks to the bottom? Perfect. But I want to do that for the main one, so it sets the default. So every time I drag one out, I have to change it. But over here, look, I can't do that. But when it's inside, whoop, don't do that. Drag the name. When it's inside this, can you see the constraints appear? Because it's inside of a parent frame. Even just like a placeholder, I'm not using it for anything else other than to say that is it. So that when I drag new ones out, okay, it's got the default of bottom and left. There you go. Main components can't be inside other main components, and it's handy to have them all inside of a placeholder frame, even if it's on another page, just so that you can set things like your constraints. Oh, one last tip about it as well is that you can't delete things in components. So if I go into here, and before, remember when we deleted something, it went away from in here. But if I hit my delete button, okay, the nice thing about a component is, can you see the eyeball just turned off? Let's move this over so you can see. So I went delete on my keyboard, goodbye. It just turned the eyeball on and off. Okay, so that's the cool thing about components is that you can't delete stuff. If you want to delete it, you've got to go back to the main component and then delete it from here. So making our elements that we're building a little bit more resilient and making sure when other people are using them, okay, we're giving them to other members of staff, they're not wrecking it and completely removing bits. They're just turning the eyeball on and off. There we go. That became a little longer than I thought. I thought we're just going to turn that into a component. There we go. Hope you learned something. Next video. Hello, let's make this. It is just a helper spacer guide, and it is an answer to a question I get a lot, like how far apart should things be? What spacing should they be? What size should they be? What's really common? It's these. And what does this do? It's nothing. It's just a visual cue. So when we're designing something, we're like, how big should it be? You can look at this and go, it should be about 24, actually 32. How far apart should it be? Let's use 6. Let's use 16. Plus, it'll give me a reason to show you a really cool plugin, okay, that'll help do all this kind of documentation for us. It's good for this little spaces here, but also when you get on further and start making things like design specs for your developer and maybe a design system. All right, boxes and plugins, spaces between boxes. Let's do it. All right, so let's make a grid. I'm going to do it over here, a little spacing grid. I'm going to use the R for the rectangle tool, hold down my Shift key on my keyboard to get the height and width the same. And I want my first one's going to be 8. This is a good kind of like base level. If they are linked, they should both become 8. Okay, the width and the height. And I hit enter on my keyboard. Excellent. I'm going to pick a really high contrast color. And what I'd like to do is just have multiples of 8 as we go up. Okay, zoom in a little bit. And what we can do is hold down the Option key, Alt key on a PC to duplicate. And I'm just going to drag it out a size. And I'm going to use my math over here because I am not good at math. And to say plus 8. Here we go, 16. Okay, I can do that math. But let's do another one. Let's go plus 8. And I'm just going to keep going up to a size that becomes too big. Let's do that. I'm going to do this in speed mode. All right, that's probably enough. In terms of spacing, okay, and things away from the edges of other stuff, I feel like that is big enough. Once we get it to 48, it's pretty massive. You can keep going, up to you. I like to see the spacing between things as well. So this is good for like units of things. How big should your icon be? How big should that image box be? How far away from the edge it should be? Another way is the spacing in between can be quite visually helpful when you're making it. And there's some common sizes for that too. So I've got my first box. How far away is the smallest distance? The smallest is 0. So we don't need 0. We can all imagine 0. Let's look at the first one is 4. Okay, so 4 pixels across. How do I know it's 4? Okay, it's if I zoom in, can you see the grid there? I can see it's 4. You can also double check. So with this selected, hold down the Option key on a Mac, Alt key on a PC, and you can just kind of like hover over stuff. You can see, look, I am 4 pixels away. So 4, 6 is the next one. That's the next really common size, not divisible by 8. I know this, but it's a really common spacing between stuff. There you go, 6. The next one, when we get more pixels away, okay, so 8 away from something is, it's easier probably just to drag it next to it. So completely next to it to say X and Y, please move plus 4 pixels along the X. That's how you can get your spacing done. Okay, so there's some small ones, 4, 6, 8, and then basically we go in either whole or half divisions of 8. So I'm going to go 12 for the next one. So 12. The next one's going to be 16, which is 2 8s. And my last one, I don't have a last one. I probably need a 20 in between them. So I'm going to go, this one is going to be +8, +8, and I'm going to make it 20. It's another spacing that I use. Now again, these aren't the rules, but often these are really good sizes for things, and these are really good spaces in between things. Now that's handy, but it's hard to know. Well, you can actually click on it and say, oh yeah, that's 48, and then go off and do stuff and look at spacing and go, okay, how far away should that be from the top? About that. Hold down your Option key on a Mac, Alt key on a PC, okay, that's 12, and then go back over there. But it'd be nice if they're all labeled. You can write them out. That is boring and tedious. Let's look at our first plugin for the course. So plugins can be found in this little icon here under resources. Okay, we're going to go to plugins, and the one that we're going to look at is Design Doc for this case. Now, there are lots of competitors to this particular app. Find the one you like, and Design Doc might not be working in a little while. Basically, when I make these courses, it's about the time that whoever decided to make this plugin decides to not update it anymore. So again, this is more of a for instance than an actual go and use this particular one. So I'm gonna find it by searching for Design Doc, one word. I'm gonna run it. This thing opens up. It's pretty sweet. Watch this. If I click on this one, let's move it over here and say, I want, give me the height above it. Look, boom. This one here, I want the height above it. Boom. You can't see it, can you? There you go. And it just makes it nice and big and easy so I can not have to go and measure this. Here we go. We can use this on future projects once we've made it. What I also want to do is click on this and this. I'm holding Shift to select 2 things. And actually I want, show me the outer spacing. Oh, very well designed app plugin. Okay, I'm going to do that for all of them. Be back in a sec. All right, so that is a sweet app. Quick little shortcut, Command Option P, Control Alt P is to open up the last plugin. If you're using it over and over, and some of them close down after you've used them, that's a good shortcut. I'll make sure that's in the shortcut sheet. Okay, but this app here, it's great. It's made this, can you see it's kind of made an overlaying thing? I want them all mixed together, and I probably want them all in their own frame. At the moment, they're in a group. That's a little dotted line there. So I'm gonna select off, grab my F frame tool, draw a box around it all, and say you have a fill of this dark color, and I'm going to have to play with a layer order. It grabbed a few of my rectangles and some of the container, not all of it. So container, you go above all of that. I've got all my rectangles here. We'll do layer madness later on in the course. Okay, for the moment though, we'll go caveman style, just drag them into the right place. That didn't quite work. There we go. All right, this is going to be my measurements. Awesome. So handy plugin both for what we're doing just here and later on when you start doing specifications for the developer, either a handover document or maybe a design system. So this will be what we'll use as a visual guide as we're going through this course, to help with our spacing and knowing how big things should be. All right, on to the next video. Hi everyone, let's talk just a tiny bit more about what spacing should be. I've given you some generic stuff in the last one. Where did I get that magic from? How do you get better at it? If you are already, quite proficient at your spacing, you can move on. But if you want a little bit of, help to make sure things are consistent and easy to work with your developer when you hand off your app, not causing problems, or at least being mindful of the developer and what they're going to be working with, watch this video. So there are lots of places that your app or website are going to end up, and what will end up happening is your engineer, your developer, whoever you're using to make it, it might be you. It's highly likely to be built on top of what's called a framework. Your developer, she's not going to be going through and putting all the noughts and zeros, okay? They're going to be building on top of things that are built on top of things that are built on top of things. So if you're an iOS developer, okay, the developer is going to be using the pre-made, or at least guidelines from Apple. If it's Android, it's going to be this material. That's what they call their design system. And they give you lots of helpful things about how things should be spaced apart. If you're going to web, it might be Bootstrap, it might be Tailwind. So talk to your developer, figure out where it's going, what they're building it on, and then have a little read around. It can be confusing, but we need to get started in these sorts of things so that you can actually, I don't know, begin your understanding of maybe a little bit of CSS, a little bit of code, so that you don't throw your developer spacing of 7, because 7 is tricky because you can't divide it in half. Okay, you can't have a half a pixel. You can divide 8 in half. You can have 4 pixels. So let's have a little look at why 8 is good as well. So let's look at material for Android. Okay, I'm in their material.io. They're on their version 3. In the future, you might be at version 4 or 5. Check it out. Okay, I'm under foundations. I'm looking at layout, understanding layout, and it's just really nice to go through and say space between columns is a default of 24 dp, okay, which is essentially pixels, short for device independent pixels. They use this because lots of different phones have different like pixel densities. Just consider it pixels if you understand that. And when you're designing in Figma, dp equals px. So they're using spacing of 24. So make sure when you're building out your little spacer block and you're going to Android first, make your gap 24. That's the default. It's happily divisible by 8, not by chance. Or at least it's a really common spacing for the moment. Let's have a look at iOS. Have a read through what they do. I think they're using 20 for their margins on their sides. They have some different defaults to a lot of other ones. And the thing with iOS is there is both phone, there is TV, there is gadgets, okay, there is watches. So have a little look. Whatever you're designing for, there will be documentation online. If you're going out to web, say you're building a website or a web app, find out, is it WordPress? Is WordPress using Bootstrap? Bootstrap is a framework that helps developers work fast, okay, and what they'll end up doing is, let's have a little look. I found this, okay, the gutters is what they call it, okay, the space between stuff, and the default gutters are 1.5 rem, and you can see there they said 24 pixels, the same as material. So if I use 24 as my spacing, the developer's going to like it because it's kind of consistent with Bootstrap and it's consistent with Android depending on where you're going. Now there are 100 different frameworks, Tailwinds, people are using this a lot, okay, to help with their styling. You can see in here I found under gap, okay, Bootstrap calls it gutter, Tailwind calls it gap. It's all useful to know as a UI designer. You can see here what a developer will type in is they won't actually type in the number, they'll just hopefully be close to one of these. So they'll put in spacing when they're coding to say gap is 0, which is 0. Gap is 1, which is 0.25 of a rem. A rem by default is 16. So 0.25 of 16 is 4 pixels. So remember that little spacing we had before? That's the minimum one here. And it's a good rule to not go 3. You know, the divisions become tricky and your developer is going to have to go and override a lot of the framework defaults. You can do it, but your developer will probably just ignore it and use some of the defaults unless you force them. Okay, let's have a look. So 16, 6, 8, 10. Oh, there's a 10. You might decide that in your design that you need a 10. Where was it? We don't have a 10. We've got 4, 6, 8, 12. There's no real hard and fast rules on what these can be. But if you design for frameworks or understand them a little bit, especially if you know where it's going, if you know the developer uses Tailwind, great. Type out all of these. So the big takeaways is multiples of 8 are good, but really you should check out how it's getting made and copy that. It'll make the transition from Figma to the actual design and development a lot smoother. And you don't have to, but I've got a Web Essentials as well, which covers a lot of the kind of things that we look at here, like what is a rem? What is a DP? What is Bootstrap? What is Flexbox? There's all sorts of good stuff that you can learn that will inform your design when you're in Figma. But kind of outside of the scope of this course, but a little bit of HTML and CSS and framework knowledge makes you a better UX designer, in my opinion. All right, was that confusing? A little meandering. But anyway, let's get on to some more hard skills in Figma. Hiya. Hey, just a little like sneaking in, butting into my own video to see how you doing. How you doing? If you're enjoying the video as well, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, okay, follow me for more. The other thing is that we do a regular kind of monthly competition. Okay, and the way to enter the competition is to comment below the video. And the question for this one is, I want to know from you, okay, what has been so far, up until this point, what has been the revelation? What has been the, that's how that works? Or, oh my goodness, I wish I knew that before. Okay, let me know in the comments and you'll be entered into the competition. The competition changes per month, okay, but we go through, look for those answers and you get randomly picked. Okay, so do that. Also, remember that this is just the short part of the video. Okay, if you got to this point and you're like, man, I can't wait to do the rest of it. This is the first 30 videos of a 160 video course. So if you're like, I want to go further, stop the video, go check out the link in the description, okay, for the full course, Figma Advanced, and come pick up where you left off here and do the full 160 videos. So there you go. Enough butting in. I'm going to kind of like sneak back out, okay, and let you get on with the course. But you should come join me for the advanced course. Don't forget to comment. Bye. Hello, let's talk constraints. We covered it a little bit in the Essentials course. Let's look at making sure that when we go and resize for different phones, it doesn't break. What we want to do is be able to have something that is resilient, robust, and responsive, okay, all the R's, so that when we do change it, it comes along for the ride. You, my friend, need to be Android Mini. Oh, look how quick and easy that is. So that you don't break it, your teammates don't break it, and it looks the same across all your devices. Okay, so it's easy. What we need to do is we need to select on our lower nav. We should probably do it to our main component so that if we duplicate it later on, we're all kind of doing it to this one. If you can't see constraints, there they are. Okay, remember they need to be inside a parent frame. Mine's just like a placeholder just so that I can change it. Okay, it doesn't do anything, but I'm going to say actually don't be left and bottom. Let's be stuck to the bottom, which is good, but I want it to go not left, but left and right. Okay, I want it to stretch out. I don't want it to scale in this case because I don't want to scale the contents. I just want it to stretch to the edges. Now we can do one of two things because this is actually not one of my instances. So I'm going to delete him and I'm going to drag this one out holding my Option key, and now he should be defaulting to left, right, bottom. And you're like, that didn't seem very useful, okay, because we just dragged it out. It's when you move on from here. So when you go, okay, I needed 2 of these now, or I need another size. So I'm going to make my Android size. So I'm going to duplicate this whole thing out. Okay, this is going to be called Android. Okay, and I'm going to say, actually, it needs to be the size of, so I've got the name selected. Let's go to frame. Let's go to iPhone. Let's go to Android small. Okay, one of the smallest devices that we're going to design for in this course. And you see what happened? Ah, look at that. If you don't have it on, I should have done that. I should have done it before and after. I think we were stuck to top and left. If we don't do that and we say, hey, go resize to it, Android small, not very useful. It's kind of disappeared off the frame. So let's get it back. And I'm going to switch it back to that smaller size. There we go. Quite the responsive little component now. Now remember a couple of notes. If yours is not kind of resizing how you want, it's probably that your auto is not set up as the spacing. Okay, so you can select it and make sure it's auto. Otherwise, it might not be doing exactly what you want. And remember, constraints can only be found if it's inside a parent frame. Okay, and by parent, I mean that there's this outside one and that this child, okay, is inside the parent. Without it, okay, that goes away. Now we're applying constraints to a component. You can apply them to anything. Regular old rectangle, constraints, as long as it's inside of a parent. It can be auto layout, it can be text, it can be anything. You already knew that. The other thing interesting about constraints is that they call them constraints here, okay, in Figma, but if you've heard the word flexbox before, basically those are the attributes we're adding to this. They're doing the same thing. If you've never heard of Flexbox, it's one of those things to go have a look at. It's how it's implemented on the web side. So either you're custom doing it, hacking your own CSS, or if you're using Webflow, they call it Flex Layouts. It's the same thing. Components, Flexbox, Flex Layouts. It's all to do with how children interact with their parent, okay? And you can do a couple of different options in there. Easy. One last thing is that when you're resizing it, we just typed it in and it kind of redid it all. If you just drag it, it works too, okay? just means you've got a lot of goodness and flexibility, because that's what we're trying to do. Make things that can't be broken. They can be used on lots of different situations. Go constraints. All right, on to the next video. Hello, I'm going to put all the auto layout shortcuts in one video. I've kind of smeared them across all the videos so far. I'll put them all in one place so you can come back to them later on. Bookmark this video if you want to. To make it auto layout easy, select them all, Shift A. Ooh, it's an auto layout. Need to break up an auto layout? It's kind of the same. It's Shift A plus Option on a Mac, Alt on a PC. Hit all those and it goes backwards. It's just a frame, not an auto layout. To add things to an auto frame, you can click once, double click, click the item that's in the auto frame, copy and paste it. People like to hit the Command D or Control D for duplication. Doesn't matter. You can add by dragging. Where did that star come from? I just made it. Watch this. I click, hold, drag, and it just appears in my lovely auto layout. That doesn't work if you're trying to drag into the instance. Let's undo. This does not want to go in here. It needs to go into the main one. Okay, even if you want it in here, but off over here, remember you can't really delete it. Okay, it just turns the eyeball off. So the main one rules everything. Even if you put more than you need, so that you can go, all right, I need you on, I need you off, but let's turn the star back on this one. You might have to squeeze a bit too much into your component to make it work for you. The thing that won't go inside our auto layout is this. It's a main component. Okay, it's the main component for my ticket icon. I can't put them in. Look, just won't go. If it's an instance of it, look at this. It'll go in there fine. Okay, why is that? Not because it's an auto layout, is because this is actually a main component itself. You can't put main components inside of other components. Doesn't like it. You can put main components inside of this, which is just an auto layout, not a component. You'll go in there happy. That makes sense? Can't put main components inside each other. There you go. Let's do a little bit of shorthand, okay, for the padding. So I've got my component instance selected. I've got a whole bunch of padding going on. I'm gonna hit 0 tab, 0 tab, 0 tab, 0 tab. Okay, to get rid of it all, click off, click back on. And I've just got these two options here, which you're normally faced with. You can say, actually, I want it to be, I don't know, 48, and that'll do both sides. I can tab across, and then I can say top and bottom separated by a comma. So I can say, actually, I want it to be 64 at the top, and then a comma, and be 8 at the bottom. And then hit enter on my keyboard. Okay, it assumes top, comma, bottom. There we go. You're a fancy coder. Look at that, using commas. You can copy and paste parts of an auto layout, not all of it. Okay, so with this selected, I want to put it on this other instance. I can use the shortcut that we've used before when we copied the frame. Okay, remember it's Command Option C to copy, Control Alt C to copy on a PC. Okay, those same two keys, but V. Look at that. He's down there somewhere. There it is. And it pasted my padding. And in this case, I've got an absolute fixed height on this, so it's kind of not working. So I'm going to say, you, my friend, aren't a fixed height. You can hug the contents, please. And they look the same. And last one we've already done, you can click on this and use your arrows left and right to move it around. All right, those are our auto layout shortcuts so far. They'll be in your shortcut sheet that you can download, and we'll keep practicing them throughout the course. Next video. Hello, hey, welcome to the first class project. A nice simple one. I want you to get up to where we are in the project already, okay? I want 3 frames and I want you to be able to do this. That one's not working. Good work, Dan. Okay, that one's bottom and left and right. Okay, so I want it to respond. I want the icons to move. I want it to stick to the bottom, even though I've shown you what to do. Okay, so I want 3 different versions. Make sure they work, Dan. If you haven't done a class with me before, okay, we do class projects just to kind of keep you up to speed. And so you're not just watching, you're actually doing. Of course, it's up to you. You don't have to do them. I'm not the boss of you, but the doing part is what really makes it stick. So if you are keen, the class projects is listed in the exercise files. Okay, class project 01. I want you to create 3 different phone sizes. The lower nav, I want it to be responsive to all those sizes. So we're going to be looking at these kind of main topics: auto layout, the auto spacing between the items. Okay, and those constraints. That's the last thing that I messed up. Make sure your nav is a component. And in this case, the deliverables, what I'd love you to do is to be able to take a screencast. What I want you to do is make a video of you doing this. Frame going like this, and it all responding. Still not responding, Dan. No excuses. Okay, I want it to do this. Okay, so video the screencast doing that. That is it. Now, recording your screen can be tricky for some people. Other people will be okay with it. If you've not done it before, Macs have a built-in thing called screen capture. PCs have something similar, I'm pretty sure. If you want to, there's a way kind of built into Figma. Okay, go to up here, go to your plugins and find one called Vimeo Record. You do have to log into a Vimeo account and set one up if you don't have one. It's free. It's really good. And it means that after a little bit of like confirm your email address and all that sort of stuff, would you like Vimeo to record your screen? Yes, please. Okay, you can run it and you can actually just record your screen. I've turned my camera off, my mic off, because all I want to do is screen recording. And once you're done, you can upload it to Vimeo and then you get a link. Then grab that link and that's what you can submit for your class project. Now, if all of that is way too hard, I will allow a screenshot. Make sure you've got something selected so we can kind of see what you're doing, that the auto's there and the constraints are right. That'll pass. But hopefully you'll be able to do the screen recording. All right, and that is it. Get up to where we are already. You might be already done it. You're like, yeah, just do the screen recording. If you've just been watching, come on, now's the time. Go back, do these things, see if you can do it. You're like, oh yeah, I understand that. Prove it. Let's do it. But that's up to you. For now though, let's get on to the next video. Actually, you go and do that, and then I'll see you in the next video. All right, see you in a sec. Good morning, everyone. It's a new day, and today we're going to start with some advanced workflow tricks. In particular, this video is all about file handling. Seems boring, but it's one of those shortcuts that will, over the course of your workday, save you loads of time. And I'm going to use them throughout the course. I'll introduce them all here so they're in nice little groups so that we know what we're doing. And I'll try and do them all the way through the course so that you, like me, become a file handling Figma shortcut master. All right, let's get started. All right, the first one's easy. Just make sure in Figma you've got a couple of tabs open. Even if they're just untitled documents, that's fine. And hit Command on a Mac, Control on a PC, and just hit 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1 gets you back to home base, okay, and 2, 3, 4. Just means you can toggle between 2 different apps, copying and pasting. If you're like me, you end up with like all the tabs full. It works mostly in a browser as well. So the same shortcut, I'm in Chrome, Command or Control on a PC, 1, 2, 3, except 1 doesn't go back to home base. It'll go to whatever tab that is. And like Chrome, you can have multiple tabs. So if I go out to 5 there, that is just a regular old website. So it's not specifically for Figma, just all the tabs. That's Control, that's Command on a Mac, Control on a PC, 1. Easy. All right, next file mastery is you can actually pin these ones here. So this is the main one that I'm working with, Event at 1. So instead of being all through everything, you can right click it and say, actually just pin this tab, please. Becomes a nice small version. You can have all the other junk over here knowing that that's your good one. You can also reshuffle these. So say untitled is the one you're actually working on, so you want to move it over here, just click and drag it. Same in a browser. Right click it, pin it, drag it around. Easy. Side note, I do it all the time in Chrome. I have some documents that I always reference all the time. So my like junk drawer of to-do lists, all the different emails that I have to check, and my calendar just always open. Then gives me space to do my other stuff like Figma and searching the internet. All right, now the next one. All right, next one is these little dots up here have all your recent files. That can be handy rather than going back to this and then being in the community and needing to go to the right place. Just go there, all your recent files. Though if you're like me, this can also get unusable because you've got loads of untitled Stan. To make it work, hover above anything you use all the time and see this little star here? You can add to favorites. Can you see them appearing over here? So the things you're working on all the time and the things you want to leave behind and be junk, okay, or get swallowed up by the flow. But these ones here are going to be in my favorites file. Okay, and remember on the desktop version, you got the little home one, which is what? How do you get to it quickly? That's right, Command 1 or Control 1. On the browser version, I can still go to Command 1, but it just goes to the first tab and all of my files are kind of hidden in the F there. See, same, all the favorites are ready to go. Next one is if you are working on really big files or you're working with a really old crappy laptop, there's this one here, View, there's one called Resource Use. Okay, and it'll tell you how many layers you have. It'll tell you how much kind of like gigabytes it's using. Basically, you got 2 gigabytes to use in this file, okay, in Figma. And if you get close to the end of that, you can kind of see if things start running sluggish, check it out to see if you're at nearly maximum. The other thing that can happen as well is that things can be stressful on the application, and it'll show you in this last bar here. Like if I paste a big document, I'll paste a big file. Can you see it kind of went up there? I'll get rid of it. You can see it's doing stuff. Sometimes that can get maxed out as well, depending on what you're doing. Often it can be a plugin that is just poorly or just really system demanding. You might find that, why is it all broken? Have that open and you can see, all right, it's trying to do something. Is it super helpful? Kinda is, kinda not. If it does start maxing out though, what you can do is, like, big images like this are just too big for Figma. And if you have hundreds of them, okay, you can run out of resources. So you need to make them smaller, not just scale them down. They need to be smaller before they come in. And if that's not appropriate, just have multiple documents for one file. If your app or website is getting massive in the design, you might have to actually have two separate files and kind of divide them up. So it's not trying to process everything. The other thing that might happen is you might be using somebody else's library. Okay, so let's go to our assets. Let's look at our libraries. I'll turn on one of our libraries and it will potentially, our one's only really small. Okay, so it's not doing much. But you can have somebody else's library on that has thousands. It might be a community one that somebody's made this gigantic thing that seemed really good, but that's what's slowing your machine down. It might be that you have to pick out the stuff you need or make your own kind of like version of the library just to tidy it up. It can be also just if somebody's made components and variables and they haven't made them very smartly. They're just like copies and copies and copies and copies and copies. And you're trying to use those either through a library or just copy and pasting them in. I'm going to show you in this course how to tidy those up and make them nice. But you might be working with somebody else's file. Just keep an eye on this. You can get rid of it, click it once, double click it actually. Again, this one is in desktop and browser, and the same 2 GB limit is kind of in both of them. It's kind of a browser thing. And essentially that's what this desktop version of Figma is. It's just that browser loading without all the Chrome bits. Another one, small one. Look at this, you can resize this. Did you know that? I didn't know that for a long time. It's really handy, especially when you get into really long naming. You can just go, huh, that's better. And alternatively, you can make it smaller. Why is that handy? I thought it was handy when I discovered it. All right, next tip. Actually, the last tip. Quick actions. We've done this before. It is command /, okay, or control /, the leaning /, okay, and you can type in anything. Like, there's so many shortcuts in this course and to learn in Figma, and you're like, what was that thing, the resource use thing he was talking about? Look at that, RES, and I can go, all right, let's turn that on. Okay, so they have actually made another shortcut for it for like international keyboards. It's Shift P. It is not Shift P, it's Command P. Okay, and it'll come up again and you can type in resource and there's that one again. Okay, and it works for any shortcut. So what I might do is switch to Command P, just so myself I get better at using Command P, because Command /, does anybody end up doing that? Command / or control / is turn the UI on and off, which is a good tip. There you go. But I do that all the time and then hit this one because that's the one I actually want. Let's use Command P or Control P. 2 shortcuts to do the same thing. You will notice that happening more and more in Figma because they went with just like a USA QWERTY keyboard at the beginning, and now they're trying to make shortcuts that are a little bit more universal to different languages keyboards. So you'll find like, why is there 2? Because there's 2. All right, that's my file handling wizardry. On to the next video. Yes, you read the intro right. Advanced copying and pasting and selecting stuff. I'm going to try and make it exciting. But it's advanced and it's good. You're going to need to know it. So there you go. Let's get going. I can feel you there. You're like, I'm going to skip this video. You better get good quick. All right, it's going to get good. There's some useful stuff. So we know that if we grab something from this frame and copy it, and we want it on this one, we can hit paste, and it puts it exactly where it found it in this one, which is not actually aligned to the bottom. You're like, okay, that's right. Wow, what shortcut has Dan got? What we can do is copy it like before. I'm going to click on the thing we want to stick it over. Okay, click on it, and you can hit Command Shift V or Control Shift V. And look at that, it puts it over the top, not where it is in the frame, but where you select. Like if I click on this and hit that same shortcut, Command Shift V, Control Shift V, it just sticks it over the top of the thing you have selected, which is almost good. Look, it's still there though. Didn't replace it, just kind of puts it on top. So I'm gonna undo that. I still can't work out why that's good, but there you go. You can replace over the top of a selection. What's better though is if I copy it and I do a slightly different shortcut, which is Command Shift, not V, but R or Control Shift R. Boom. It actually puts it and replaces the thing you have selected. You've got this and you need to replace these gems. Okay, I'm going to copy it and then I'm going to select it and go Command Shift V. And I'm going to go Command Shift R. There you go. It replaced it. The thing I had selected, not because normally you go copy, you click on the frame and it goes exactly where you want it. That's kind of good and mostly helpful. You can do it in a lot of goes as well. Watch this. I'm going to undo, bring back our lovely Comic Sans. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to U and U. Will it do too? It will do too. Command Shift R, Control Shift R, wherever it is on the frame. And it hasn't just stuck it over the top, it's replaced it. That'll be in your shortcut sheet for sure. And most of you will know this shortcut. I just draw a rectangle at the top, for example. Okay, and I'm going to select all of these frames, holding Shift and hit paste, just a regular old paste. Can you see it puts it on every single artboard? This one, frame. This doesn't fit across, but that's okay. Great way of getting nav across lots of different frames at once. That's multi-paste. You don't do anything. You just select multiple frames and hit paste, and it sticks it where it got it on all of them. Another interesting one is if I copy this, what tends to happen is, like most programs, if I go to this one and hit paste, it puts it exactly where it got it. Or if you have nothing selected, it just pastes it where it got it from, and you end up with this duplicate over the top. Is this handy? You can actually right click it, and wherever you right clicked your cursor, there's this special option that says paste here. Okay, so say you want it, because otherwise if I'm up here and I hit paste, can you see I want it over here, not down there? Go away, and it's overlapped. I can just say right click, paste here. It goes to wherever your cursor is. I'm trying to sex that one up. It's kind of good though, right? It was worth the 30 seconds anyway. Okay, it's time to scrape the bottom of the barrel. Next one is select inverse. So let's say that I want to leave the nav on this page and get rid of everything else. So select all, okay, it's Command A. It selects everything. The cool thing about Command A is that if you're inside of a frame, it selects everything inside of that frame. If you have nothing selected and go Command A or Control A, it selects everything in your document. You can hit delete, okay? But if you're inside of here, select all, you can delete everything inside that frame or do whatever you need to it. Copy it, paste it, do the paste here, maybe. But now there is a select inverse, okay? So I'm here, I want to select everything but this. I do this all the time. I want to clear out everything in here or change the color of everything in the frame, but not this. So you select the thing you don't want, hit Command Shift A or Control Shift A on a PC, and it selects everything in reverse, except this, look, he's left behind. Except, weirdly, in Figma at the moment, that shortcut selects everything in every frame, which makes it kind of unusable. Because often where I need it is when I'm in here and I'm like in this group here and I'm inside of it and I want to leave this one alone because I've changed the color of it. I just want to select everything else because there's lots of different things in here. Command Shift A, but it grabs everything on every frame. Oh. There is, I'm hoping that gets fixed in Figma. Check it, it might be fixed now. There is a plugin for that. What's this? There is one called Select Inverse for Real. Let's do it. So I'm inside this group here. Okay, I've got this selected and it will select, well, let's run that plugin. Who remembers what the shortcut to run previous plugin is? That's right, nobody remembers. Command Option P on a Mac or Control Alt P. It's handy when you are a bit of a plugin lover. And in this one, it's pretty cool because if I go my Command Option P, okay, it just runs the last plugin that I used. There you go. So find it first, run it, and then you can use that shortcut. And all that plugin does is exactly that. So let's go again. I go into my group, select this one, and because I've run the plugin already, Command Option P, Control Option P, hit delete. Oh, look, it selected everything but that, not just everything in the document. Hopefully that becomes just the regular default feature in Figma. All right, so select inverse things using a plugin is the bottom of the barrel for my advanced selecting and copy and pasting. Let's finish with a good one that you might know already. Shift 1 to go see everything. I want to actually grab all the navs on the 100 artboards, so sorry, 100 frames that I have. Now I can never remember the shortcut for this one, so we're going to use the shortcut to rule all shortcuts. Remember, it is Command or Control // but we're going to start using the Command or Control P because that seems just easier. Okay, I'm going to type in same. There you go. Have something selected like our nav. We're going to say select all the same properties. There you go. It's a great way of selecting everything and deleting it, moving it, finding it all, changing the color. Obviously ours is a component, so we could do it up the top there, but there you go. Select same properties. Same one here. Just to practice that shortcut again, Command or Control P, and because it's already at the top there, I just have to hit Enter on my keyboard. Select it, Command or Control P, and you can see there, I've got those last few ones that I've used. Woohoo, no typing required. All right, how did it go? Was that super advanced copy and pasting and selection? Hopefully one of them were good, and we'll try and use them all again in the course somewhere. On to the next video. All right, welcome to all the fun and crazy things you can do with fields in Figma. It is pretty cool. So pretty much any field you want. I've just got a frame here. Any of these fields can be operated by the keyboard. So let's say I want to add rounded corners and you're not sure, just click in it once and use your up arrow. Okay, can you see? Just adding it. Let's move it over so the editor doesn't have to zoom as much. Okay, here we go. You can make it go faster by holding shift using up and down. It'll go multiples of 8. Okay, so we're at 20 now, go up 1, it goes 8. Why 8? You know why 8 now. Everyone loves 8. It's a good nudge amount. So without it, goes in 1s, holding shift goes in 8s. Any old field, okay, rotation. Tap it around until you like it. Works with, say, color as well. Okay, this fill here, I've got my cursor selected in here. If I use my up arrow, can you see it's only moving very slightly, okay, up the brightness scale, that's what it's doing. If I hold shift, okay, it goes in bigger chunks. Actually, it's going in the, not brightness, it's going in the hue. Can you see, moving along? That's not that useful, Dan. The opacity is better. Let's say the stroke here, you're not sure the size. I've clicked in 1, up and down. Jumping in 8s is probably not that useful in this case. But anything you want to click, you can use up and down. Hold shift to make it go faster. I like it for font sizes. Okay, so we're selecting here, clicking this one and just use your up and down until you find the size that you want. Want to go up in 8s because you want to stick to an 8-point grid? Oh, handy, handy. Now, a lot of the things you can do as well is you can scrub them. Okay, anything that has a little icon next to it. See all of these? Okay, this one here, my kerning or letter spacing, here we go. Or just drag it. Okay, I don't have any line height, but you get the idea. Same with these ones here. Instead of trying to tick it, you can actually just drag them. Same with the rotation. Okay, any of the fields that have an icon, click on it, hold it, drag it, and it will kind of scrub through it. Let's add a stroke and see the little stroke icon? Yep, yep. There we go, scrubbing. Now, when we are moving things around, okay, using the left and right arrow, not using any of this, I'm just clicking on it using my arrow, up, down, left, right. Okay, this is called nudging. Okay, and you can nudge it in big chunks by holding shift. Okay, you probably know that already. What big chunks is it using? It's probably using 8. If you're not using the 8-point grid because you're using something else, you can actually go and change it in your preferences. So I'm going to go a little F. I'm going to go to preferences. There it is there. And down here, there's a nudge amount. Click on that. And the big nudge, which is holding shift, is 8. You might decide actually your small nudge is 8 and your big nudge is 16. You probably won't, but you might go back to this. This was the default in Figma for a long time, and you might not use the 8-point grid or 8-point spacing, so go back to 10. I'm gonna leave mine at 8 so I can do my nudging. Now 8's good as well, maybe 4, because a half of 8, and sometimes you do need that. Up to you, but now you know it's there. And lastly, I think we've covered this already. You can do maths in these things. So if you need it to be divided by, it's /2. Okay, divided by 2. You can add plus, let's say you want, I don't know, plus 8 pixels. Clearly you can do minus 8 pixels. You can use times, which is the little hash, I don't know, 50. There we go. Any of these fields. Want 100%, you want it to be half, okay, divide by 2. All right, that is all the cool, crazy things you can do with fields in Figma. Does adding the words cool and crazy make it all seem more exciting? You probably, like me, are excited for these tips and tricks in Figma. All right, let's get on to some more of them. All right, let's learn all the tips and tricks about working with frames, shortcuts, and the like. Okay, first of all, let's click on this one and use a shortcut. Let's use Shift 2 to kind of zoom in on it. Want to move to the next frame? Just tap N on your keyboard. Look at that, just kind of like cycles through all of the available frames. Nice. Shift N kind of goes backwards. So forwards, just tapping in, backwards, Shift N. Super useful. Some people prefer the home and end button on your keyboard. Look down your keyboard. Do you have home and end? Some keyboards don't, or you have to hold down some special function keys. Why is it better or worse? It does the exact same job, except one zooms and the other one doesn't. So let's use end to move to the next frame. Can you see it didn't zoom it into the middle of the screen? Same with the next one, end, next one. It's not zooming in, whereas the N key like fills the next frame as fast as, you know, as big as it can be. Whereas end keeps the same zoom level. Okay. Decide which one you like the best, either N or end. Home is going backwards and it just doesn't zoom. Which one do I use? I mainly use N because when I'm using my MacBook Pro, it's really hard to get to the home and end keys. But when it's plugged in here, when I'm doing my tutorials with a fancy keyboard, clickety clack, if you like the clack, I do too. I have got my home and end key, so I can do it here. Another sweet trick is I want to go to this one here, Android, just double click the icon. Okay, and it just moves to it, kind of zooms across nicely so you know where you are, kind of gets it in the middle of the screen. When I go back to measurements, ooh, nice. Another little trick for frames is, at the moment, I dragged out the size of this frame and just dumped everything into it. What you can do is say, U measurements actually just squidge down to wrap just around the things that are inside of this. It can be handy when you're working on like a drawing inside of a frame, or you've deleted some bits out and you just want it to kind of like wrap around it nicely. You can squidge it down that way. There is a shortcut. You hold down, you can see it there, hold down all the shortcuts and then hit R. I will never remember that one. Just click the button. All right, the next one's handy for using frames. I'm gonna bring in an image just because it'll hopefully express this shortcut better. Command Shift K, Control Shift K on a PC. Your exercise files has a folder called images in it. Grab image 1, and I'm just gonna hold Shift and drag out a size. Okay, and let's say we're gonna do some horizontal scrolling, which we will do in this course. So we need things to kind of like go off the side of the page. What ends up happening if we end up duplicating these things, can you see? It actually escaped. Okay, I want it to kind of be off the page, but hidden inside of here. And that can be tricky. Things just start jumping outside of frames. How do I fix that? Hold the spacebar key down while you're dragging. So I'm gonna copy and paste this. I've got 2 of them. Watch this. If I start dragging it across, it wants to jump out. You can kind of see it over there in the layers. You can see editor will move across. Okay, and you can see it over here on my artboard. But if you hold spacebar while you're dragging across, look, you can go all the way over here and it's still out. There we go. Same for things like if I want an image to look like it's kind of like, you know, frosted down the bottom and it's kind of like almost off the screen, holding Shift, you kind of like, I just want it just, nope, just, hold spacebar. Look, it can be anywhere you like. It can be all the way over here. It's still in that frame. Oh, spacebar. And the last one, it's here on my list. I'm going to show you because this is the advanced course. I don't know why it's here though. I'm going to use my shortcut, Command P. Okay, for my quick actions, and I'm gonna type in the thing that because I never know what it is. There you go. Show frame outlines. There you go. Can you see the teeny tiny frame in there? Whoop. Let's have a look. There we go. Show the frame outlines. Command P again. I can just click enter. There you go. It turns the frame outlines on. It's there. Somebody somewhere will need it. I have never needed it. Let me know in the comments if you are that person. So frame outlines, not that helpful. Just general outlines is pretty good shortcut. It's not part of the frames, but hey, we're here. Command 1, don't hit Command 1. Shift 1 to see everything. Then you can hold Shift and hit O for outlines. So hold Shift, hit O. It's the same on Mac and PC. Okay, you can toggle to see the outlines of stuff. That is actually quite handy. If you're an Illustrator user, which a lot of you are, Command Y, which is the one that works in Illustrator, works in here as well. So you can be a Shift O person or a Command Y person. Doesn't matter. That is showing the outlines of vector stuff. All right, that's all I got for the moment for sweet frame tricks and tips. Let's get on with the course. If you've got a trick or tip for frames, let me know in the comments. I'm always looking for more to add to my repertoire and add to future courses. And if you're watching, have a look at the comments, see if there's other good ones in there. But for now, let's get on to the next video. All right, let's learn how to zoom in and out. What? But hold on, it's advanced. I'm doing air quotes. Advanced zooming tips and tricks. Stuff you might not know. Buckle up for excitement. Now, we all know if you hold down Command and hit plus or Control plus on a PC, you zoom in. Same key, but hit minus, you zoom out. That's the same in all the Adobe products. What I didn't realize until recently is you can just hit plus and minus on your keyboard and it zooms in and out. There you go, I'm like institutionalized with Adobe shortcuts, but just plus and minus works. A more exciting tip is, let's say I've got this selected and I'm down here and I zoom in using that same sweet shortcut plus. It just zooms into the middle of my screen, not into the thing I had selected. Okay, you can change that as your preference. Okay, under your little Figma options, let's go down to preferences, and this is off by default. I like it on. Works like Adobe Illustrator, where if you've got something selected and you hit plus, it zooms into the thing you've got selected. You might hate that, so you can turn it off. Shift 1 to see everything, then go on working on this thing here, and then plus, 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 and it zooms in on it. There you go. Is that advanced zooming? Maybe not. Now the last little tip and trick is for people using mice. They have a scroll wheel. I do this all the time when I've got a mouse with a scroll wheel, which is most of the time when I'm plugged into a big screen, is the scroll wheel goes up and down. Okay, by default, if you hold Shift, it goes left and right. And if you hold Command down on a Mac, Control on a PC, it goes in and out. Good old scroll wheel. If you don't have a scroll wheel, that won't work. There you go. Scroll wheel up and down, Shift, left and right, Command or Control to zoom in or out. Nice. All right, that's it for advanced air quotes zooming techniques. All right, let's get on to the next video. Hi there, you might be wondering, why is his background UI all dark and moody and cool like, when yours is like this? You've got light mode enabled. That's the default normally. Let me show you how to toggle between the two and some of the things that happens to the defaults when you change it. All right, so how did I get my dark and moody background? We're gonna go and change it to the light theme. Command P, Control P, and let's just say light. Here you go, use light mode. Bam, everything's light, kind of. The background doesn't change. Once you've changed it, if I make a new document, it kind of uses all the light stuff. Can you see light UI, but also a light background color? Okay, and the background color doesn't update. It's kind of like set once and it's done. So if I go and change this, Command P and go dark mode, you can see the background color stayed in the light mode. You can change it yourself, right? With nothing selected, just go and pick a dark color. But once you've changed it, every new document will remember and be dark mode and have a dark background. And why is there a light mode and dark mode? Other than the cool factor, dark mode is cool by the way. It's for when you're in a poorly lit room or it's nighttime and you're working in the dark. The UI in light mode, Command P, light, is actually quite bright. Especially if the background comes along for the ride, it's actually quite a bright light in the room. Not that it hurts your eyes because your eyes adjust, but it's maybe a distraction from the work. For me, I don't worry about it in Figma. I pick dark mode because it looks cool. But when I'm using something like Premiere Pro or Photoshop or Lightroom, when I'm doing like lots of color grading and correction and stuff, then I don't want to be distracted by the UI. You can get it to follow whatever your computer's doing. So like my Mac here has an option where you can set it to auto, so at nighttime it goes dark and at daytime it starts light. I just forced the UI of my Mac to be light, but you can get it to follow that. You can find it somewhere, there it is. So hit the F, go to Preferences, go to Theme, and you can click System Theme and it will update depending on what your computer says. I don't know if that works on a PC. Hang on, I got a PC right here in front of me, wait there. I knew it. I knew if I started that PC, it would say something like, updates underway, please wait. All right, let's please wait. All right, the wait is over, and yes, you too can do system theme on a PC. Was that worth it, Dan? No, it was not. But anyway, I don't have hate for PC. I have a little hate for PC. But if I'm honest, they are just as good for half the price. Enough. Let's go on to the next video. Hello, you. Hey, it is time for another class project. I'm going to get you to make an event card that has a date box that sticks to the corner. Let me show you. So I want you to make this. Okay, make a rectangle and put, well, a frame, okay, and put a little date box in the corner that sticks in the corner. Okay, see if you can get that working. It's skills that we've learned already through the course, but I just want two things. I want you to practice, because sometimes you like just do it once and kind of drops out of your head. But also we're going to use it to move on in this course to build up grids. So we're not just looking at features, we're actually making something. So make something-ish like this. The rounded corners are optional. So you know where we're heading eventually is we're going to make something that's just a little bit more responsive like this, okay, in our upcoming video. So we need the core of it made and a bit of practicing. If you're not able to do it, don't worry, in the next video, I'll do a completed video, okay, where I actually do it, just in case you do get lost, or you want to just compare your method from my method. The only other thing to remember for this class project is make sure it's a component, okay, so that we've got instances of it over here that we're using, and we're keeping our main component off our frame. Anything else? Deliverables, same as the last one. Make a video if you can, if not, screenshot. Okay, and I just want you to drag the edge showing that it's responsive, okay, and upload the link to your video. Often you can't upload the video itself, so have it on something like Vimeo or YouTube. Those are the best places, and then just link it, and then post the link in the assignment/project section. All right, have fun making it. And if you get stuck, I'll see you in the next video. All right, this is the completed version of the class project. So in case you got stuck and you weren't sure how to do it, you can watch this. I'll show you how to do the thing stuck in the top right corner real quick. That's pretty easy. And then I'll go on and actually just, I don't know, do the rest of it, okay? Like how I would do it to a professional level, like make sure it's a component. I'm gonna turn this thing into an auto layout because I'm gonna pretend I did it on purpose, really. I did it and I discovered how awesome it was later on. But we'll do that, make sure it reflows, sticks to the corner. I'll show you how to push it out so that it's, I don't know, 16 by 16. There's a few little tips and tricks in here, but you don't have to watch the video because you can see it's a little bit long. But for those of you who want a ride along, it might be interesting, at least to compare to how you did it, to how I did it. It's always good to see sometimes. All right, let's jump in. All right, I'm gonna start on this one here. Click on the frame name. I'm gonna use Shift 1, actually Shift 2 to zoom in. If you're like me at the beginning, you weren't sure, is it Command 1 or Command 2 or Shift 1? You're like, ugh, I always get it wrong. The way I remember it is like Shift 1, 2, 3 is I'm shifting my view, whereas Command, I'm commanding you to change tabs. 1, 2. Does that help? Anyway, let's do it just real quick, the basics, so that you know where you've got it. And then I'll go through and design my whole little card thing you saw at the beginning. And you can watch if you want, if you need the experience or you want to see how I did it, or maybe you got stuck somewhere. So let's do the basics. Let's go F key because it's better than a rectangle, more options for a frame. Okay, I'm going to draw out a size. I'm going to give it a color so you can see what I'm doing. Pick any color, as long as it's green, greenish, aqua, teal. There you go. Okay, and inside of it is going to be another frame. So I'm gonna hit the F key again, and with it selected and kind of drawing over the top of it, it ends up going inside. You can see frame 1, which is not a good name for it. Let's call this one card-event. And then this one's going to be my date. Okay, I'm gonna give this one a fill of white, just so you can see it. And all I wanna do is say date, my little frame guy, is constrained to the left? No, to the right. To the top? Yes. So when I select this now, it jiggles around, comes for the right. Awesome. All right, dismissed. Unless you want to see it all. There's some tips and tricks, but as you can see from the time, I'll kind of work my way through. I'd hang around if I was you, but you don't have to. All right, let's get into a bit more detail. This needs to be a component because I'm going to use it loads of times. So remember that sweet shortcut? Do you remember? Command Option K. That's right, on a Mac. Control Option K on a PC. Here's now our main component. A main component should hang out over there. And we should have instances here. Let's just have a couple because it's interesting. But we need to do most of our editing in the main component because we want it to flow through. A couple of things is we want to have, I'm going to click, hold, and drag the little icon there to the right. Hold Shift and it jumps up in 8s. How much do we want? 16, 24, 24. Let's use 24. Make sure it's a squircle. Okay, I'm going to hit the little options here, hit the little dots, because squircles look better than just rounded corners. Okay, iOS do this thing where they smooth the corner. It's called corner smoothing. We're going to zoom in. We're going to use my scroll wheel. So I'm going to hold Command down or Control on a PC and zoom in and out. The wrong way first. There you go. And look, can you see the edges there changing? Do you like it? Do you even care? There you go, I care. Let's kind of do the same for this. So let's go U. 8's going to be good with the corner smoothing. All right, text that are inside it. So I'm going to grab my type tool, and if you kind of click inside stuff, often it'll go inside. Can you see it went inside that date frame? Kind of works. So I'm going to say 17. Size-wise, let's use that little shortcut where you click on it and use up or down. Okay, probably want mine about 10. 10's pretty small for an app, but this is like more of a suggestion and not a full, like the accessibility kind of date will be in the actual listing. This is like a little card trying to cram in too much information. I'm going to have 2 bits of text. This one's going to say Ma. Nope, capital Ma. I'm going to select it all, hit Command B to make it go bold. Control B on a PC. Just instantly goes bold, which is cool. I'm going to hit Escape to get out of it. Hold Shift to click both of them. I'm going to hold down the Option key on my Mac, Alt key on a PC, and I'm going to hit H to line them up horizontally. So that same key plus V will align them vertically. So or just click those, okay? I don't remember what those shortcuts are because they don't make sense, but this one makes sense. Look, Option or Alt on a PC, H for horizontal alignment. Okay, so I'm going to do these, and what I'd like to do is mine ended up inside my frame, which is good. You can drag it out if you need to. Okay, I'm going to drag it over this way. Okay, I would like mine inside, so drag yours inside this date frame, because what I want to do is I want this frame, at the moment I've got a fixed, where is it? You are a fixed width and a height, 32 by 32. Great size, but I want it to expand if there are longer you know, some of the digits aren't going to fit perfectly in here. So I want to turn this into an auto layout. Remember, Shift A, so that it's perfectly in the middle. Can you see there? It's defaulted to hug contents. If it hasn't, for like fixed width, okay, you can say actually just make it hug everything on the inside. So that when later on and somebody goes, oh no, what's a short one? It's probably just as long. Okay, I want it to expand and contract. Okay, and it allows me a bit of control here to select it. So actually I can play with the spacing if I want to, the padding, Might make mine 4. It's a bit more responsive. So let's go Shift 1. Okay, see it all? It's all appearing there nicely. I want mine spaced out a bit better from the edge. So +++. I hit delete on the way. Okay, I want mine to kind of go in this top corner here, but I want it to be minus how much? Let's use our little grid system. Okay, how I'm kind of seeing both of them. I'm like, spacing wise, what do we think? 12, 16? Let's do 16. 16 feels like a good gap from the edges. Okay, so I'm going to say you are going to be minus 16 to go across, and then plus 16 down, and I know it's perfect. Look at us being perfect. And hopefully it's still responsive. It is. Yep. Picking the right side. The constraints are set perfectly. Remember, the constraints aren't done with the parent. It's done with the child on the inside. That's inside of a frame. Yes. But we work on this guy. Look, you have constraints at top and right. Make sense? And now the nice thing, Shift 1 is I can have these like on a smaller device, kind of full width, but on these larger ones, my plan is to have like 2 of them kind of stacked up on a really big wide phone, okay, and have grids like this. D, and this is going to work for our desktop view as well. But one of the problems here now is kind of consistency with spacing. We can go through and kind of go like it's kind of a pain. You're like I want it to be what, +8? No, +16. Okay, and you can do that for everything, but a grid system is going to help us make this a whole lot faster and allow us to be a bit more consistent across lots of things rather than just dragging it and trying not to forget to use 16 instead of 17. So that is the segue to the next video, and why we're in this section called grids. All right, now you might have done it differently. That's okay, doesn't matter. As long as it's kind of sticking in that corner, okay, and you might have designed it a bit different in terms of looks, you might not have used an auto layout. Was that necessary? Probably not. I felt like we kind of needed it. Meh. Anyway, why could it be good? Actually, this could be good. Later on, we might use it on a desktop version and we might use it this way. Look at this. I can't change the auto layout direction in an instance of it. Okay, I've got to do it up here. You in the main. I could say you can go this way. Look at that. Oh, that is I should have led with that. That is a very good use case for auto layout. There you go. Let's pretend I did that on purpose. All right, that is the end of the video. A long one. I hope you picked up some tips or confirmed some of your knowledge, or you figured out how to do it a better way. Let me know in the comments if you did it a different way. And if you're watching this video, have a look at the comments. There might be a genius way that Dan didn't think of. All right, that is it. I'll stop talking about myself in the third person. Let's get on to the next video. Hello. Hey, before we get deeper into grids, let's talk about the difference between grids and constraints and auto layouts, because they can be confusing about when to use each of them, which is good for what. It's confusing because they all share a similar sort of purpose. It's about responsiveness. And if I'm honest, I've recorded this video about 10 times already, trying to make it concise and not me waffling on for, I don't know, 15 minutes. It's meant to be a recap, Dan. Come on, recap. Okay, let's start with auto layouts. Auto layout we already know. Okay, we can grab 4 different things and we can say Shift A for an auto layout, and it gives us some kind of responsiveness. And it's more to do with the content internally in our auto layout, as opposed to constraints and grids that respond to the frame size. Okay, so if I've got a different desktop size or a different phone model, the responsiveness that happens there are grids and constraints. Auto layouts are more to do with what responds inside of my little group here. Okay, so I can go in and say, actually, this is, instead of settings, it's a count. You see it reflows. It's responsive, not to the outside frame, just to its inside bits. I can grab you, and go you, and responsiveness. Excellent. Okay, the constraints though, which we've done, if I select on this and say, actually, I want you to be constraints of the left and the right and the top, it means that when I go and resize this desktop, okay, maybe for a tablet view, you see it comes along for the ride. So it's responsive, but it's more to do with the frame size. So you often use these two together. Okay, I can resize it and I can go in here and say, actually, you don't want log out, I want sign out. And the auto layout adjusts. So grids, why do we have them? They are visually useful. Okay, they just help you get consistent margins, consistent spacing between pages on multiple pages. They have some other useful things. If I got this, you'll see it snaps to it, which is great. Okay, I can have consistent spacing between them all on different pages. I've already said that. Where it becomes super useful is it actually ties in with constraints. Okay, over here we said you constrained to the right and the top. What we can do with a grid is we can say I want to be constrained to the left and the right, but it's not doing the entire frame. It's actually just doing the grid itself. Why is that cool? Is that when you have a different size, okay, we have a different size page. Okay, let's say it's a smaller page. Look what happens. Look at that. Okay, so grids tied with constraints means for a more consistent reflowing and responsive design. Does that help put those three different things in their own little box? And can you see how they kind of like complement each other? Hopefully. So when do you use each of them? So auto layouts, I got kind of like 3 levels or 4 levels. And for your initial scrappy design, we've got no idea what you're doing here. You're just kind of getting things on the page, getting everything laid out. You don't need any of these. You don't need auto layout or constraints or grids unless you want to. Okay, but often at that stage, there's so much flux and flow. You're just dragging things around and trying to get things in order. So concept stage, none of these are that useful. When do they become useful? Kind of at different times. The grid I find is useful basically once you've got that concept stage done. Use grids because it allows you to be consistent across your different designs. It's one of those things to get, it's kind of easy to get right. You know what kind of grid size you're going to use, how many columns, and let's do that on all pages. Awesome. Auto layout is another one that you can use early in your design, okay? Because you're still adjusting things, okay? You're removing things and moving them around. So you're still at a reasonable concept stage, but it's a lot easier having an auto layout to reflow these things than it is to be manually like turning them off and deleting them, getting the the spacing perfect between them all. So often I'll use auto layouts early in my design process after the concept, maybe after client approval, or maybe I'm just happy with my, say, wireframe or high fidelity and I want to go a bit further. So grids early, auto layouts early. Where I start worrying about constraints, okay, is later on when I need to build out different sizes. So often I'll just work on one phone size, whatever the most typical generic size is to start with. Same with the desktop. But when I get closer to the end of my project, where I actually have to figure out what am I going to do for tablet? What am I going to do for a big screen, for a little screen, for a Pro Max phone, or a tiny little Android one? That's when constraints become a lot more useful. So that's for me and my different sizes, but also if you're going out to other people. So as soon as you have to give them to someone else, you should probably decide how these things constrain so that they adjust the way that you imagine them. Wow. So that was a big waffly mess, but that was the big waffly mess I could come up with. I hope it did help a little bit. So my parting words are that auto layouts, constraints, and grids don't have to be used at all, especially at the beginning. Where they become useful is when you've got more than one page, multiple pages, and you want consistency because you've got a reasonably established design, and they're absolutely essential when you're working with other team members or preparing things for yourself to be used later on in future projects. All right, I should probably start with that. All right, that is the end of the video. Let's get on to doing some stuff, Dan. Stop talking. Hi there, in this video we'll make a column grid, just one big one with margins on the side. We'll make a second grid, in this case an 8-point grid, so we can get some good layout within our cards, not just the parent frame. I'll show you how to copy and paste grids from one frame to another. I'll show you how to create a style, edit that style, and a couple of shortcuts. Let's get into it. All right, let's make a grid. Let's click on the first phone frame, and I'm going to say layout grid plus, and I'm going to use the columns. So hit on the little icon there, switch it to columns. Okay, I'm going to have a one column layout for my small phone. Okay, and I'm going to have a margin of a really small kind of tight layout, uses 16 pixels, like it's pretty close to the edges. And if you've got loads to squeeze on, you might have to do that. Okay, and but I'm going to use 24. Gives it a bit more breathing room around the edges, and I have the luxury because I don't have so much to cram in. Cool. Now you can copy and paste these to different phones. If you've got lots of different ones, you can just copy and paste this across. Okay, so in my case, I'm going to click on the frame. What you want to do is find your layout grid, and then you want to click in this random area here. I don't know, not there, there. It just kind of allows you to select stuff. You can do that with lots of things. You can select in these weird areas here, and you can copy and paste them once you've selected them. Okay, so I'm going to go, yep. I'm going to go copy, and I can click on as many phones as I like and just hit paste. So that's just Command C, Command V, or Control C, Control V, just your regular copy and paste. That's a good way of getting across lots of documents. But the problem with that is it's probably easy just to use a style, Dan. So let's undo that. I'm going to click back on my first one, and I'm going to hit the little 4 dots there, say make a style from this grid. I'm going to add one. Okay, and I'm going to call this one column. Okay, and I might put the margin in here as well so I know what it is at a glance, because I might have to have, in different pages, might have to have different margins. All right, let's create a style. If you need to update a style, okay, you can either click off in the background so you see all of your styles, or click on the phone, you'll see your style kind of there. You can break the style so it's not connected, or you can adjust it. We can adjust it by just clicking on it. There it is there. And you can edit it by clicking on this little guy. See, edit styles. Okay, and it halfway gets there. You're like, great, I can change the name, but I want to change, say, the margin, okay, from 24 to 32. You actually can click on this here, this little icon, and there you can get into like the depths of it all, change your margin and your gutter. All right, so that's creating and editing our grid. The shortcut for turning it on and off is Shift-G. Have I done that already? I'm not sure. Shift-G, okay, because it's great when you're laying it out, but when you want to design stuff, the big red thing is not that useful. The other thing to make sure you're doing when you've added your grids is to set the constraints, okay? It depends if you want your, I'm gonna want mine to snap this side and snap over here. Same for these two. Actually, I'll delete that one because they're just instances of itself. And I'm gonna make sure that both of these selected are not just left, but are left and right, so that when they adjust, okay, they come along for the ride. Otherwise, they don't. Let's make one more style. We're going to use, instead of the columns, we're going to make a grid. Okay, we're going to do it on this card here because we had, we were trying to push things over like 16 pixels and down 16 pixels. And let's say that I want kind of a bottom of my card down here. How do I make sure it's kind of defaulting to multiples of 8? And we can do that with a grid. So I'm going to click on the actual, we could do it to the instance, but if we do it to the main component, it goes through all of them. And I can say, actually, I want a layout grid on you. I'm going to leave it as the grid. It's defaulted to 8 points. We can change it by clicking on the icon here. And it just means now when I'm laying things out, where's my frame? I know that it will snap. Can you see it snaps to the different 8 points? Okay, consistency, Dan. I love it. What I might do is the edge of this, like there's still some responsiveness. Not everything is going to be 8 point because all phones and desktops are different, but let's get my main component laid out nicely. Okay, I've just zoomed in a little bit so I can actually see, I'm on the 8 points. Okay, it doesn't snap when you're doing the outside of the frame. It snaps with things on the inside, like that frame that I did that you can't see. Let's give it a color. Okay, but the edges here, let's just tidy it up by saying the bottom is, where is it? 8 points. The bottom part of this is going to be 8 points as well. Oh, okay, and let's turn it into a style. So I'm selecting the outside and I'm going to say, let's make you a style of grid. And this is our 8 point grid. Let's create our style. All right, so we've got a couple of different styles. One thing you might notice that I just noticed as well is that is not adjusting. Why is that not adjusting? Constraints, Dan. Okay, so I'm gonna stick it to the edge there, but I want it to actually expand and contract depending on the parent frame. So I'm gonna say, we know constraints left and right is gonna help us. And it's gonna be stuck to the bottom. Nice. Remember the shortcut Shift-G on and off. All right, next thing I want to do is when we're resizing these for the different ones, you can see it's not, how do I get it to snap to like 8 points? I can see the grid inside of it, but the outside frame doesn't. I can zoom in and go, all right, here we go. Let's just get this to snap to that 8 point grid. Perfect-ish. Let's add our third set of grids, which is rows. We've done columns, we've done grid. Let's look at adding rows. Hi everyone, in this video we'll go from having one column down the middle as a grid, super helpful, to having rows as well. Looks like where's Waldo or where's Wally, depending on where you're from. But these little stripy guys are super helpful for getting consistent layout using our lovely 8 point grid. All right, first up, I think I was messing around with my layout there. Didn't quite get it to the edge of the column. Okay, and I'm gonna make sure that this one's stuck on this side. And what I also wanna do is, grids are good. I don't use them very often. I show you because lots of people do. So what I'm gonna do for this event card here is I'm actually gonna turn I'm gonna take off my grid. I've got it as a style that I can use later on and apply. I'm just gonna turn it off for the moment. I'm gonna show you why I like rows better. They're not really better, they're just visually less confusing, for me at least. I'm gonna use my F key for a frame, draw out, it's gonna be my top navigation. I'm just gonna drag it to the top and the sides. While I'm here, my mind says make it make it left and right so that it resizes with the frame. I'm going to give it a fill color. I'm going to give it any old color for the moment. Okay, and now that it's left and right constraints, it's going to resize. Perfect. But how high did I make it? I just made it random height that looked okay. Okay, and it was 55. But I want to be consistent. I want to use the 8-point grid. There's enough flexibility in there to get the size I want. I'm going to be able to be consistent across devices and different projects. So let's turn on our rows. So I'm going to click on the outside frame. At the moment, there's a style applied to it. Okay, so I can't add another one. So I'm going to say, actually, let's break this because I want to keep the column, okay, but I want to add another one, not a grid. Okay, but I want to add rows. Rows are strange, not strange, but at the moment they are stretching. So I got 5 of them, Shift 2, 5 of them. Okay, let's close this down, Shift 2 to see the thing I've got selected. And there's 5 of them and it kind of stretches to fit. And that works for columns, but not so much for rows. Because rows, I can scroll up and down the screen as long as I like. It's not a fixed size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on it and I'm going to edit these rows. And I'm going to say, you're not stretchy. You're going to just stick to the top. And I want you to be a height of 8 with a gutter of 8 as well. And it's kind of working. They're up there. You just need lots more of them. How many more? Just put in a giant number. 100, as long as it covers your whole frame, you can put in 200. It doesn't really matter. It just kind of goes off into infinity. And you can see how that is, for me, I've got my constraints for my column, left and right. Okay. And now I've got my rows. And now it allows me, kind of like the grid, but less messy. Okay, so I can just go U and snaps to it. So I can say 48. That's perfect. It's close enough to that random 50 something I picked. And now with these items, I can start laying these out and snapping them to the top. Same with the bottom of it. Okay, if I decide that the bottom of this needs to be how high, it's going to snap to my 8-point grid. What's the spacing I want between them? Let's say it is 16 points. I need, my event card has a white thing inside of it. Let's change that from white. Okay, frame to, I'm just going to use a darker color. So that down here, it's more visually viewable. It's not a word, Dan. But it means that, can you see I'm holding shift to make sure it goes up and down. I actually need to. Just drag it around and I know it's 16 between the two. If I want to match the outside, I can drag it one more to get my 24. There we go. Rows are better than grids, in my opinion. This one's not lining up. So I'm just going to delete this guy and go U. There we go, 24. Oh, nice. Remember to check, select on the actual thing, hold down the Option key on a Mac, Alt key on a PC, and then kind of hover above the component above it. And look at that, it's 24. Perfect. All right, Shift 1 to see everything. Let's click on this, Shift 2, and it looks like, where's Waldo? Or where's Wally, where I'm from? Kind of stripy red and white. But that's only handy when you are laying things out, when you're trying to design, they're in the way. What's the shortcut to make sure it goes away? It's right, Shift G. So that's using rows and columns. You can see my top one is not enough. I'm going to use U. So that's rows and columns in Figma. And grids if you want to use them. All right, on to the next video. Hey everyone, let's talk about editing an existing grid style. Okay, at the moment we have a style. Okay, I've got this frame selected. I've got this style here called one column, but I want all the rows part of it as well. So instead of breaking the link and making it a new one, what I should have done in the last video is with it selected here, I can actually go, I don't want to break the link, I actually want to go and edit it. So I'm going to click on this little icon here, and I'm going to say this one here, I'd like to adjust. Okay, so instead of one column, I'd like it to be one column with a row of 8 points. Okay, and I want to add to it here. Instead of breaking it and adding another grid layout, I'm going to go into here, into my style, and add it in this. So not that one, I want to go to rows, and I would like the to be top. How many should be in here? How many? You know it. Loads. Okay, and I want it to set it to the top and not be stretchy. I want the height to be 8, and I want the gutter to be 8. If you mess around with the offset, it's just the offset of the top. You might want, say, 20 pixels all the way around as a margin, and that messes with your 8-point grid. So you can actually just offset it to 20, make your margins 20, and then still run an 8-point grid within there. That's totally fine. I'm happy that I'm using 8 all the way around. So we go, I've updated that one. So what I want to do this one now is I actually can get rid of these and say, let's apply that style of one column and all the rows. Nice. All right, that was a short one, updating styles in Figma. Hi everyone, let's add columns to this frame here. Not the overall frame, because we've got this weird use case where we just need 4 columns just for this little box here. We'll add one little column layout grid. Then we'll take it a bit further, okay, and we'll work on this one, Shift 2, where we've got a fixed width navigation. Okay, maybe it's the admin part of our website. This has to be this size, but the rest of it needs to be stretchy and responsive. It's easy to do and allows grids to be a bit more unique for our specific requirements. All right, let's go. So we can add columns or any sort of layout grid inside of frames. So I'm going to grab my frame tool. I'm going to draw out like a features set of boxes here, but I want it to have 4 columns. So instead of trying to do it to the overall frame, which is my phone, I'm just going to do it to this frame. I'm going to say add a layout grid, and I want it to be columns, and I want it to be say 4, which is way different from my 1. Okay, but it's only unique for this like little features cards that I'm going to do in here. Little boxes that you can click to go to the different, I don't know, subcategories of gigs. Okay, and the gutters I'm going to match other stuff, 24, maybe 16. And it means now when I draw, grab my F tool and I draw boxes inside of it, okay, I can get it to snap to the rows, but also I can get it to snap to this new columns that are inside of it. And I can say, can you be left and right? Let's give it a fill color. Where are you? You're invisible. Okay, fill color of not white. It means that these will adjust. Okay, so you can have columns not just in the parent frame, but inside child frames for like special occasions like this. Let's do that other one you saw at the beginning with the fixed left nav. So let's jump out of mobile land now and let's hit the F key and let's go to desktop, and I'm going to pick generic desktop size and I'm going to put it down here. Okay, and what we want to do is we don't want the generic 12 column grid. Okay, 12 columns is a really good grid for desktops. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing. Gutter is going to be 24. I'm going to have a margin of 32, maybe a bit more, 40. Problem is I need this fixed left nav. So what I want to do is Shift 2 to zoom in. Let's use the F key to design my navigation. Okay, so it's going to be a fixed size. Okay, how wide is it going to be? It could be using the 8-point grid. You can type in anything you like, okay, because it's a fixed width. It's not going to change depending on the different computers that are going to be viewing it. This stuff needs to change. This doesn't. It needs to be a fixed size to fit everything we need in here. So what do we do with this? So what I'm going to do is give this a fill color, pick anything, as long as it's greenish. And what I'm going to do is copy and paste that style, or we could delete it, but I'm going to select it here. Maybe on the little edge bit there. Boop. Go copy. Okay. I'll delete it off this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the F for frame, and I'm going to drag out a box that goes in here. You see what we're going to do? We're just going to apply it to here. So you need to get out of the mode of applying grids just to the background, but you can add it to individual frames. So let's hit paste. And what I want to make sure is that it is doing constraining left and right. This one is not going to constrain. I want this to be a fix, so it's going to stick left. And what I might do is do top and bottom so it stretches. Same with this one, top and bottom. Now we've got a fixed left nav and stretchy columns on this side. All right, that is layout grids within child frames, not just the overall parent. All right, we've got our grid fix done now. Let's get on to something else. Hello, it's class project time. I want you to create a little brand, okay? We're not gonna it's not a branding class, but let's have something unique for all of us so that when we're moving along, we're building something that we can use in our portfolio, and then when we share it, we're not all doing limerick techno, okay? How do we get a bit of variety? We use, in your class projects, there'll be a link to this, randomprojectgenerator.com. I made this with the team at Bring Your Laptop so that you can get like a generated brief. Okay, so go to it, go to the Figma Advanced. Okay, and in here type in your village, your town, your city, it doesn't matter. Okay, and then you should be presented with limerick and then a music genre. And just use the one that it gives you. It'll help push your ability to work on projects that maybe, you know, jazz isn't my favorite. I don't mind jazz. But having some restrictions here, I guess, will help me define what the app looks like instead of just doing the same old things in my portfolio. So use this as your name, and this is the logo. So we'll use a logo mark, okay? And you don't have to spend too much time on it, or you can. So you can, I just used an icon for my bird. Okay, a free icon. I'll show you in the next video an interesting widget to get free icons. You get bonus points if you spend some time making your logo, but actually designing it yourself. That would be super awesome if you can give yourself some time to design, in this case, a fish logo. for Limerick Jazz. So we've got our brief, we've got our name, okay, and I want you to make a logo, okay, either a free stock icon or design your own. And then I want you to pick some colors, okay. There are kind of like 3 basic colors you're gonna need: primary, secondary, and a neutral color. You might have an extra 3rd kind of accent color here, sorry, 4th, it's up to you. I ended up with this, my primary, my secondary. This is going to be my neutral color. I've got this one. It's not my accent color. This is my interface color. You don't have to have this one. I just like having it, like the background here is that interface color we saw earlier. It's so that I can put white stuff over the top and it stands off a bit more, but that's optional for you. So there are plenty of places to go find color swatches, okay? A few colors that work together. I've put a link to Adobe Color, which I use a lot. If you want to get more in depth on color, I've left 2 links here for the kind of older material system, okay, design system, and the newer M3 version. There might be an M4 out now. Go check those out if you do want to dive into a bit more. It's a lot more detail than I'm going to do in this video, but the minimum is just pick 3 colors. How did I get my 3 colors? I just went to, and I made a mood board, Shift 1. Okay, and had loads of stuff, and I was looking around, and I just started picking that with the eyedropper tool. I went like this. R for the rectangle tool, hold Shift so it's a square. Then I had the I key on my keyboard and went, oh, I like that. No, I can't even remember where I got them from. And I doubt I got them, I don't think I got them all from the same place. And then I think I changed them, but a mood board is a good way to, maybe I got it from this. Sometimes I just pull them straight out of an image because there's just a really cool image with some cool colors and you're like, oh, there you go. That's how I got my ones. All right, so you need your logo, you need your colors, and deliverables is 3 screenshots of your brief. Okay, you can either screenshot it or there's a download as PNG. Okay, and then I want to see your color choices and the logo on your nav. Okay, so if you arrange them nicely here, you could take a screenshot of all of this, okay, and that would be perfect. If your name gets long, say you end up with like classical music and it's really long, you can use an acronym, okay, so it was Limerick Classical Music. I'm happy for that as well. Choose a font, up to you. We'll talk about fonts later on, or at least we'll get into typography a lot more advanced later in the course. We'll get into color more advanced as well, but for the moment, pick some colors, make a little logo, or just use a free stock icon like I did. Upload it, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to make a placeholder logo, and we're going to use, or I've used icon from this plugin here called Icon Scout. Now it can't be a registered trademark because it's a free icon from the internet, so anybody can use it, but it'll do great for our kind of portfolio piece here. Also, getting some of these icons can be a little tricky, so I will show you just some, you might have run into some troubles in the last video. I want to show you to take something like this seemingly simple bird that actually has quite a bit of grouping and masking going on. I'm going to show you how to just like smush it down into like a really simple vector that might be a little easier to use. Plus we'll give the bird a mohawk. We'll also make our top nav a component, as well as putting our logo in there as well, which will also be a component. All right, let's get going. All right, so the icon that I use, or at least the plugin that I used, is called Icon Scout. We can hold Shift-I to open up this like resources panel here, and it will just default to whatever the last one you had selected. Okay, so that's Shift-I, both Mac and PC, and you can see there Icon Scout. Now, Icon Scout might not be the most popular when you're looking. Okay, I use Icon Duck sometimes as well. There are lots of different icon plugins. The way that I pick is generally I just look to see used by how many people. Okay, when something's being used by only a few people, I feel like it's not as good as the one being used by loads. So it's not a great measure, but anyway, I'm gonna use Icon Scout, and then, there we go. Okay, now with Icon Scout, and most of them, there is an option for free and premium. So I'm gonna go to free, and I typed in bird, and I scrolled forever and eventually found my guy somewhere down somewhere. Can't remember, but I found it. There he is, hello. The cool thing about these is like, let's just pick another random one. Let's pick this guy, he looks cool. So let's have a look at him. So there's the creator, or Redis. Thank you very much. And often it's part of a pack. Okay, so if you're looking for other animals or other icons in similar sort of styles, you can often go to the pack and have a look and say, oh, yep. The little crown in this particular app means they're paid, so they're giving away some free stuff. But if you want the whole fairy tale pack, you get to go pro and decide if that's worth it for you. Way easier than drawing all of these. One thing I'm going to do is let's go into it. And this one here has an SVG and a PNG. Okay, I'm going to insert the SVG. Okay, and let's pick another one. Let's go to bird again. Bird. Is it in free? It's not. Well, I'll just use this guy. He's free. So let's do this one again. So I'm going to show you the difference between these two. I looked at these earlier and they're kind of different. When you haven't done a lot of drawing in Figma, they can be a little tricky. This one here is easier. Look, so I've got these two, bird and bird, okay, frames. Inside of this one is just two. There's a vector drawing, okay, and then there's a dot for its eye. That's pretty easy to understand and start manipulating. You decide, actually, I don't want the eye. Click on it. I can turn the eyeball off. There you go, goodbye eye. If I want to double click on it and grab the head and say he needs a duck mohawk, perfect. And in this case, you can see it's getting clipped out of the top. So I'm going to click on my frame, okay, and I'm going to say don't clip the contents. And what I might do with the frame is, can you see here, this option here says resize to fit. Resize my frame so it can fit all the bits inside. This one's pretty easy. This one's trickier. Let's have a little look inside. Let's zoom in, Shift 2. Okay, and inside of this frame called bird is a path group. Okay, inside of this group is another group, and inside of this group is a bunch of different vectors that are easy enough to understand. There is a mask going on here. Okay, they can get really complicated depending on who drew them. Okay, so what we can do just to, like, I find it's easy just to go select on it, the parent frame, right click it and say, let's flatten this, Command E. Anybody do that from hands up from Photoshop? Just to smush all the layers together. It's still vector, which is cool. It's just a tidier vector. There's not so many groups upon groups upon groups. It's up to you. It'll depend on your Figma experience. My one's got a black border now. So what I'm gonna do is double click it to go inside my vector. I'm gonna click on the outside part. I can shift click all the corners, or I can just hit delete and delete again. I did not. I've got to click them all. Good. By parent frame. And now I'm going to click done. I've just got this more simple thing that I understand a bit more. Up to you. Command Option P will open up the last plugin that you've used. On a PC, it's Control Alt P will open it up. The last thing I want you to do is Shift 1. Let's look at what we're doing here. Shift 2, okay, is hold Command or Control scroll wheel. Okay, and let's have a look at this. I'm going to turn it into a component. Okay, so my component is over here. Where is you? There it is there. Okay, it's my main component. I'm going to get it to fit the frame. And instead of just calling it logo, let's call it logo mark. And my one is called Limerick Techno. All right, so have your component outside of your first frame. Put it over here in a kind of a beginnings of a top nav. Make sure our grid's on, so Shift G, okay, and just make sure that this frame here for my background is, snapping to my 16-point grid. Find something that works for you. Find a logo size that works for you. And position-wise, oh, that looks good. Okay, Shift G to turn them off. This whole thing should be a component, so Command Option K, Control Option K. It's called frame 2. Let's call this one nav-top. Okay, and we should keep the original over here and put an instance back over this way. There we go. Last thing I'm going to do before I go is my zooming's backwards. So I use my scroll wheel, like I mentioned earlier. Hold Command down or Control on a PC. You can use your scroll wheel to go in and out. Mine's operating backwards. Everyone likes their scroll wheel to do something different. I'm used to mine going the other way. So I'm going to go Figma Preferences, or we can go here and go to Preferences and please hold. Invert zoom direction. That's what I want because I prefer to do it this way. It means when all I've done is toggled the way the zoom goes. You understand, right? So now when I scroll my wheel, it zooms in instead of zooming out, which didn't feel right. Anyway, all right, that's how I got my logo. Anything you really need to do is just make sure that your logo and your nav are two separate components. All right, next video. Hi everyone, in this video we'll look at the difference between plugins, kind of traditional Figma plugins, and these new fancy, newish fancy widgets. Why do we have two of them? I'll show you the difference and I will show you a couple of my favorites. Ooh, look at this one. Automatic color styling. Nice. All right, the general broad differences is that plugins do more. Widgets are quite simple creatures. Plugins tend to do loads and loads of things potentially. The other thing is that you can only have one plugin open at the moment, and widgets you can have lots open at one time because they're lightweight. Plugins generally appear in like this little icon one, Icon Scout, appears in its own little window and produces stuff for your canvas. And then when you're finished with it, you close it. Whereas widgets live on your canvas, okay? And you can have loads of them open. So let's open up this one here. All this one does, well, sometimes they end up in strange places. So mine's ended up tied into this and it is stuck in there. This brings up a good point. Widgets are new and they are developed by lots of different people, all with different abilities, and some of them are updated all the time to keep up and some of them aren't. So I'm going to show you a couple here, but sometimes they just don't work. This one does normally, but very often I end up getting them smushed in here and I can't actually find them. Option, click the little thing, there he is, he's hidden in there. So if I hold Option on a Mac, Alt on a PC and click the little chevron, it spills down everything. There you are. So I can say actually just come out of there and come over here for me. Sometimes with plugins and widgets, you have to close down Figma and open it back up before they work properly. Not all the time, but I've run into that problem a lot. So this one here just allows you to pick a date. The date you've done something, it works for FigJam as well as Figma, okay? And it is cool, it's on an angle. You can pick different angles. You can pick different dates. Okay, it might be a date to be completed, the date was finished, the day you're going to deliver it. But the cool thing about it is it gets a sweet little icon there. Okay, it's my little widget, but I can have more than one. Shift-I to open up the resources, and there it is there. We're going to use this one in the next video, color levels generator. It's awesome, okay? And it lives on the canvas. And while plugins generally produce something that's kind of dead on the canvas, it's just produced and it's finished, these are dynamic. I can change the date and it adjusts. And this one here, I can change the colors and it adjusts. It's dynamic, it's doing something. Lightweight, but it's doing something. I can save these styles to my style library. It's all very cool. So that's why we have plugins and widgets. I wish they'd just smush them together because I feel like the terms do the same thing, but now we all know. You can have multiple widgets on the canvas at once. Plugins just one open at a time, but generally they can do more processing power. Widgets, lightweight, simple things. And lastly, before we go, shortcut. Who remembers to open the last plugin that you used? If you haven't already, you will find a plugin that you know and love and you use all the time. This will become a handy shortcut, I promise. That's right, it is Command Option P on a Mac, Control Alt P on a PC. There you go, there's no such one for the plugin. Oh, one last thing about plugins, you can actually copy and paste them. So you got two of them. I got two of the same plugin now. I need two of these. Do I need two of them? Not really. Probably need loads of these ones though. All right, there you go. Plugins versus widgets in Figma. Hi everyone. Let's create some color variants from our primary, secondary, and neutral colors. Just so we've got some variants of these colors for different situations throughout our app design. We're going to use this widget here called Color Levels Generator. It's handy, it creates styles. I'll show you how to kind of tidy up your styles. Sometimes this thing produces a little too many, and we'll talk briefly about what these numbers all mean. All right, let's make some color variants. Okay, Shift-I, I'm going to be using a widget called Color Levels Generator. This is one that I like, but you got to remember in the future, it might not be supported anymore. It might not be working anymore. Figma might have changed. There might be a better one out there. So this is just a for instance, okay? So I'm using Color Levels Generator. And I'm going to put it over here out of the way. And the way this one works is I'm going to grab my primary color. Okay, I'm going to paste it in here. I'm going to, you see that? It made all my color variants. Look at that. 500 is the main color. That's the one I've typed in. And then there's less, and then there's more. Rather than like we did in the Essentials course, we just kind of like lowered the brightness and raised it up. Okay, and this one, I'm going to add a color name. This is going to be my primary color. The cool thing about it is that it's used a really good naming convention. Okay, this would be really typical in web design. Okay, for both font colors and font weights, they use these kind of styles. 500 is the middle, and you have like 1000 would be a really light font, and 900 would be your black font. What we can do is I can also hit save styles. That's the cool thing about widgets, is these things are actually doing stuff. And you can see over here, all my styles. Maybe if you've got this selected, they might not be there. So click off in the background or hit escape on your keyboard. Look, primary color, and I've got all my colors there. Now, this is probably way too much detail than I need. What I tend to do is do this. Can you see I cut out all the middle ones? So, let's go back. So I don't want 50, it's too light. 100 is the lightest I want. I don't want 200. I don't want 400. I don't want 600. I don't want 800. You can, like there's no rule for it, but I find that is a good enough spread for me. I'm gonna do the 3 other colors. You can just duplicate these like you duplicate anything. I hold down my Option key on a Mac, Alt key on a PC to drag it out. And I'm gonna add my other colors. I'll get the editor to speed this up. And while speeding it up, I added my styles, unfortunately, and I called them primary. So they kind of overrode my color styles. So I forgot to change the name. So I'm going to go undo, 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 and just make sure you change the name because it overrode my original primary numbers in my style. So undo. All right, this is my secondary color. Okay, save styles, escape. There's my primary. Did I save them? There you go. Now we're going to speed up and do the last one. Good speeding, Dan. Okay, like the other ones, I'm going to get rid of you, and you. So I've just got odd numbering in here. Same with this one, my secondary, you, speedy, speed. Now, so these are my color styles. When you're using them, let's say I've got my, let's actually just grab an F tool for the frame tool, drag it out. And when you're over here, okay, my fill colors, I'm going to hit my fill styles. And it can get a bit long depending on how many you've got in here. Sometimes it's nice to just type in 500. 500 is that middle style. That's the kind of like full color. You can see here, there's my primary color. Remember, 500 is the one that I picked, and everything lower is a little bit brighter. Everything above it is a bit darker. So with you, I can just type in 500 here, and it will just give me my, just cut it down to a more manageable level. The last things I want to do is I want to add my interface color, and I'm not going to do it through this. I don't want all the different variations. I just want to add it as a style, and this one's going to be called interface. You might not have this. And what you'll notice is if I click off in the background, I've got you, but all these guys are in a group. Now I'm happy with that. And just a reminder, you can reorder these depending how, which one you've put in. Okay, so you can say, all right, secondary first, just in case you got it wrong. Primary, secondary, and I'm gonna have neutral at the bottom. I can't make the interface go down the bottom there because it's a separate color, groups at the bottom, single colors up the top. Anything else? One thing is this particular one doesn't work very well if you don't have the hash in front of it. It kind of just, if I type in, say, if, kind of just doesn't know what to do. So it defaults to what it was before. So make sure the hash goes in. And do you need these? You don't. You can delete them. So just click on the frame, go away, go away, go away. All right, so we've got some of our colors, but we've also got color variants now as well. Gonna be handy to build out our app. All right, on to the next video. You made it to the end. Man, there's a long video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're like, oh man, that was great. You know what you should do? You should give me a like and subscribe to the channel. Those sorts of things help me. More importantly though, remember this is only the first chunk, okay? So you've done like the first 30-ish videos, okay, here. There is another 130 after this, a total of 160 videos for the Figma Advanced course. So if you're like, man, that was really interesting. There is so much more interesting stuff to cover. So if that's you, check out the link in the description and sign up. There is an Essentials course as well for Figma if you are, depending on where you are in your Figma journey. But yeah, like, subscribe, join me for the full course. High five for making it to the end of this. It's got to be one of the longer YouTube videos you've ever watched, right? Which is good. I don't know. There you go. Awkward goodbye. Bye.